one thing I do know, son, and that is you are here for a reason. I don't know whose reason, whatever the reason is, you know. Maybe it's because, I don't know. It's, but I do know one thing. It's not to score touchdowns.
Hello and welcome once again to the Cine-Files, where each week we enter the world of a great film. We explore its themes, the history, the filmmaking, and the influence it has on us today. My name is Steve Morris. I'm a filmmaker and directing instructor in Los Angeles, California.
Hello, everyone. My name is John Rocha. I'm a writer, producer, host, and voiceover artist here in San Diego, California, and really excited to be going back in time to redo one of our earliest episodes, Steve, and revisit it with one of our earliest guests.
Can you believe, John, that it was over 9 years ago that we met in your apartment near the Grove to record the third episode ever of the Cine-Files with our very, very special guest and member of the Geek Buddies, Michael Vogel. Welcome back to our microphones.
Yeah. Y'all just made me feel old.
Yep.
Thanks so much for having me back and making me feel like an old piece of shit.
No, not at all. You are like a young Kryptonian ready to fly for the first time. That's what's really going on here. And since this is really the season of Superman, because we have the new James Gunn Superman in the theaters, and the world is certainly talking a lot this, it seemed the perfect time to do a crossover with one of my favorite podcasts, which is the Geek Buddies, so Michael, what's so great is we have you here, and then people listening to this show right now will hear in their feed the Geek Buddies spoiler review of 2025, and we'll also be having this first episode show up at the Geek Buddies feed. John and I are going to record our own spoiler review of the Superman movie, which will be exclusively on Patreon and Apple Podcasts. There is a lot of super stuff going on right now.
I mean, it's like the world's finest of geeky podcasts. I love it.
There you go. Yep, it's definitely not Brave and Bold. It is more world's finest. I absolutely agree. Sure. And of course, we want to say, speaking of Patreon and Apple Podcasts, we could not make this show without you. The supporters there are absolutely incredible. They keep our microphones running, and you can join it as well. Go to patreon.com/the Cine-Files or Apple Podcasts. And if you go to patreon.com/the Cine-Files, normally our Cine-Files shorts are at the $5 tier, but this upcoming one on Superman is going to be absolutely free. You just have to sign up. You don't have to pay any money, and you will get that free episode and some other free goodies along the way. So patreon.com/the Cine-Files. Check it out.
Yeah, and another way you can support us is also when you're listening to the podcast, if you're listening to the commercials during the breaks that we have on the show, and there's a product that stands out to you, then we encourage you to use our code. It's more often than not Cine-Files, and you'll get a percentage off those products so you can try them out and see if you enjoy them. And that's another way to let these clients and sponsors of the Cine-Files know that you definitely want them to keep sponsoring us here on the show. So that's another way where you can kill two birds with one stone by getting something you need and supporting us here on the Cine-Files. So please make sure to use those codes if any of these products stand out to you.
And so also, if you would like to support me, my Venmo is at Michael dash Vogel. Just send me money.
Listen, it could work. It's happened before. So I actually think I'm going to start off this episode the same way I believe that I did 9 years ago, which is to ask you, Michael Vogel, how did you come to Superman? What is your relationship to the character of Superman?
I don't remember what I answered 9 years ago, so you guys can all go check the tape and see if I get this answer right. But most people who know me today think that I was always a comic book kid, but that's actually not true. When I was a kid, I was into animation. I was into cartoons. I was really into Disney. I was really into after-school cartoons. So for me, that was He-Man, Thundercats, G.I. Joe. Super Friends was something I was peripherally aware of, but I wasn't super into it. And I think the first time that Superman really popped up on my radar was in high school when we did our homecoming decorate the hallway competition called Deck the Halls. And it was right when Superman was being killed in the comics. So we had there was another guy that did most of the art that was really into comic books, and he did a bunch of artwork about the comic books. And so I picked up a couple things in Superman, but I wasn't really that into him. And it wasn't until I got into college where I kind of did the typical comic book black hole that you fall into. I started off with some X-Men and some Batman, and then you go from that to, well, I'm going to pick up this Deadpool comic. Oh, I was reading Batman. Now I'm going to pick up this Robin comic. Oh, Wonder Woman showed up. And eventually I found my way to Superman, and I found my favorite superhero. He is absolutely my favorite of all the superheroes. I find myself arguing often with why Superman is my favorite when most people tell me that I'm ridiculous, that he's overpowered or he's not interesting or he's boring. But he's always really struck a chord with me. So similarly, I came to Donner's Superman later in life, which I think colored some of my opinions on certain parts of the movie. But so Superman, I would say about college age is when I became a Superman guy. But now I've always been a Superman guy. And particularly in the past week or so, I feel that although I've always loved Superman, my love and pride in being a Superman guy has definitely grown tenfold in the past week.
John, what about you?
Like Michael, I don't know what I remember, what I said 9 years ago. So if it's different from what I said on the original episode, well, then we should delete it, Steve. Here is my experience. From what I can remember, I do believe that I went to see this with my family. I think it was right at that age where my parents were taking me to movies and we were going as a family together. I remember being just absolutely floored by the movie and loving the movie. I remember like waiting for it to come out on broadcast television. That was such a huge deal back then. Some of you younger people who listen to us have no idea what it's like to wait a year or a year and a half, sometimes 2 years for the film to finally debut on network television. I remember being just blown away by the movie all over again. And I remember begging my mom to buy me the 2 LP version of the soundtrack that I played religiously when I was a young kid on our record player in the upstairs living room. I remember distinctly that experience and situation. And I just love the movie. I love the movie. Always loved the movie. There's such a nostalgic feel for it. It was great to rewatch it again. And I just remember being a kid right at the right time when that movie came out and having those feelings just kind of wash over me every time I watch the movie. I still get emotional. I still cry every time Glenn Ford dies. I still laugh whenever the train scene happens and them running past the train and stuff. And I feel the anger in Superman at the end when he is screaming out of rage that Lois has died and is spinning the world around. And so there's so much that's beautiful about the movie that I love. And the love story, of course, along with everything else. So yeah, one of the most perfect superhero movies ever made, in my opinion, irregardless of some of the flaws that some people like to point out about it. I think it's perfect.
So I know that I told this story 9 years ago, and it's actually a story I've told several times, I think, on the podcast. And as John and I have been talking recently about how I hate repeating myself, but this one I'm going to repeat because this is like a Steve Morris origin story. It's not just an origin story of my relationship to Superman and comics, which is that my dad had a collection of DC comics from the late 40s to the mid 50s when he was a kid. And on his first day of high school, he left to go to high school, and his mom grabbed all his comics and threw them in the trash because it was time for him to not have kid stuff in his life anymore.
Right.
Which just right there is tragic. I mean, it's like hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of comics got tossed in the trash. But what that meant was that my dad bought me comics from the time I was like 3 years old. And they were, even though this is the early 70s and 70s DC comics were not good, but he bought me, because he didn't know about the X-Men or Spider-Man or anything like that. He bought me Superman and Justice League and Batman comics. Yeah. And so that to me is like, that's how I learned how to read. It wasn't Fun with Dick and Jane or anything like that. It was Superman comics. And actually, I'm going to hold it up just because, but this was my 5-year-old birthday gift, was this garbage can that has the first issues of Action, Detective, and Wonder Woman on the cover. And that
what a trashy gift.
I know, right? And that was all right. I didn't realize we invited Shannon McClung to come on the show.
He's not here. Somebody's got to do it.
So this Superman was my favorite, bar none, without question. Hugely important to me. And so when this movie came out, I went opening night. I remember going to the Cinema One. I remember lining up, and this is probably among the, I don't know, top 5 or 10 movie-going experiences of my childhood, because it was just, I watched Super Friends religiously. I watched the old Superman TV show. I read Superman comic. Superman was my hero. And to go in that movie theater, and when those credits happened, and then see, I just was the fulfillment of all my little kid fantasies, you know?
Yeah. I forgot about that. Right. Watching the black and white Superman TV show, George Reeves, watching the Super Friends, right? Even the most recent James Gunn movie has a scene where you see the Hall of Justice. And that I was like, I grabbed both sides of my theater chair in like 10-year-olds nerdy excitement seeing that on the big screen in live action. So yeah, great points you bring up there.
So I want to talk a little bit about Superman the character, because today Superman, I will say, and I think you guys will agree, Superman is not the most important superhero character in the world right now. You know, like in terms of people's relationship to that character, Batman and Spider-Man and Wolverine and Cap and Iron Man because of the Avengers, and like those are the people that people think about. But I don't think folks today understand just how important this character was. So here's some information about what happened when Superman came out. So it's obviously created by Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster in 1938. First issue of Action Comics #1 maybe sold 200 to 250,000 copies. Okay. By 3 years later, there are now 3 titles. This is 1941. They're selling 1.5 million in sales for the comic. By 1945, it's 4.5 million issues sold a month of Superman comics between World's Finest, Superman, and Action. But that's not all that's going on. There is also a daily comic, which premiered in 1939. It's in 300 newspapers. It's read daily by 20 million people by 1941. There's a radio show that starts in 1940. 2 years after the series starts, there's a radio show. It's daily, 5 days a week, a Superman radio show listened to by about 5 million people per day. There's nothing in our world today that is as popular as Superman was in the first 6 years of its creation. And this is the thing too. When kids are buying Superman comics, the assumption is that a kid is sharing his comics with multiple kids. So if you're selling 4.5 million, there's 10 or 15 million kids reading these comic books. Like the size of this character, the importance of this character, it is and has been one of the 5 or 6 most recognized characters in the world, along with like Mickey Mouse and a few other things. Like that's how important this is. And so when we get to the 70s, when we're talking about making this movie, there is huge connections to this character at the time, you know.
I imagine that must have been like, you know, movies and Michael, I suppose you can speak to this as well. You know, you just feel this kind of unexplainable wave, like you're on this universal wave and it's the right time to do this movie. And you kind of sense it in an interesting way. Because I feel like Titanic took advantage of the wave of Titanic interest that was going from the early 90s into the mid 90s, right into 97 when Titanic came out. There were all these documentaries, there were all these specials, books were coming out. So it's like this feeling like as a populace that you want something more to represent that. And a movie, more often than not, is the result of that. And I imagine the Superman thing had been building for quite some time. And then boom, right at the right time, 1978, dealing with Vietnam, dealing with the end of the flower power stuff, the battles in the streets, all these big movements that went on in the 70s. Like there is a desire to remember what was great about what we thought was great about America. And so here comes a film like this that doesn't take sides. It just shows you the possibilities of what's out there in such a magical way that takes advantage of a love for Superman that a lot of people still had and were passing on generationally through their own family.
I think that's what's so crazy now is that there's this weird way that we're in a similar moment. You know, it's like we're in a moment of cynicism and darkness and distrust and lack of belief in America and lack of belief in humans. And along comes Superman again. You know, it's really and when did it start? 1938, tail end of the Depression, an incredibly cynical and difficult time. And there comes Superman. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like that's what's kind of amazing to me.
Well, yeah. I mean, look, there's two people in the world that everybody can claim as their own, and it's Superman and it's Dolly Parton. And I don't know if you've listened to the podcast Dolly Parton's America.
So
but,
good.
But
Great
Dolly
podcast.
Parton's America, which is an amazing podcast and everybody should listen to it, talks about the fact that with all the division that's in the world, you go to a Dolly Parton concert and there are red hat, MAGA wearing people, there are gay men, there are drag queens, like everybody's going to Dolly Parton, and everybody puts it aside for the 2.5 hours that they're at the Dolly Parton concert. And Dolly Parton has somehow managed to thread that needle. The way she threads that needle is she is kind to everyone. And Superman, for all the division that is on all the clickbait articles in the past week about Superman is this and Superman is woke and Superman, like all the things that everyone's saying that just is trying to just like drive outrage, Superman's just a good guy.
Yep.
That's the thing. And Superman, if he was here today, whether you are the most left-leaning liberal person or the most right-wing conservative person, he's actually going to treat you with respect and he would save you no matter what you believe. And I think there's something really powerful in that. And to your guys' point, whether it is when Superman the comic launched, when the Donner film came out, or where we are today, as much as everybody in Hollywood will argue with you that Superman's not as interesting as Batman, or nobody wants to see a hero that's just a nice guy, when you get it right and you do Superman the way he is supposed to be, we kind of always need that hero, kind of more than the others. And I think that's what's really great about Superman to me. I mean, James Gunn did kind of nail what I love about Superman, but it's like the super part is the least super part about him. The stuff that makes Superman a real hero, and the reason that we love Christopher Reeve Superman as much as we do, is not because he is the strongest or he's the most badass or he kicked major ass. It's just that he is a good guy. And I think that's something we can all be.
Well, and this, it goes back. It was funny as you were talking, Michael, I got teary-eyed just listening, just thinking about it.
I'm very eloquent.
I realize it's mostly your eloquence. What I realize is that I really do think this shit is real deep for me. I think, growing up on Superman, even though if you had asked me in high school or in college, who's your favorite character, I wouldn't have said Superman. I would have said Daredevil. I would have said Batman. I would have said there are a lot of other characters I would say. But it's so formative to me. And it's why in the last, decade when things have been, I mean, obviously everyone knows I'm a liberal guy, but as things have grown so contentious, there's this point where I get very uncomfortable. And John might have witnessed this more than anybody else, of me going, I don't like that. Like, I don't like attacking the other side. I want to find ways to, and it makes me, and I realized watching this movie, some piece of that comes from that 5-year-old kid reading Superman,
I think so much of certain generation of people, Superman is their gateway. It is their foundational hero, is Superman, right? Because there's so much about Superman that is relatable. He is out of place. He is trying to be accepted. And yes, he's got all these powers, but I think Michael said it really well. It's not the powers that make him super. It's the fact that he's a person who is a bit of an outsider who's trying to find his way inside. And so many people feel this way and have a gift or something they want to share, and they have to find their way to be able to do that. And Superman does eventually, and he uses his powers for good, which is something we're taught from a young age forward. And now do we all adhere to it? Does it always work out that way? No, but it is something that is taught to us from a very young age. And Superman really symbolizes that. Batman is the one who is troubled by the death of his parents. Wonder Woman comes from a different species, and it's more historic, or different race rather, it's more historical. It's different. With Superman, there's this feeling like this is something for people who are it is an American hero, even though he's a global hero. But there is something about it that I think is a gateway for a lot of us to love and appreciate. Because I remember feeling the same way as you did, Steve, growing up about Superman. But as I got older, obviously, I moved away from all of that.
Yeah.
Every time I rewatched the movie we're about to discuss, 1978 Superman, I am a kid all over again. I am emotional all over again, as I just said a few minutes ago. And I'm moved by the film all over again because of how it perfectly captures this hero that I think was such a formative hero for so many of us of a certain generation, and hopefully still is for so many at young ages who discover.
And hopefully is about to become one again.
Yeah. Wouldn't that be nice? Wouldn't that be nice? So gentlemen, I'm going to attempt to give you some pre-production on this movie. But, there are certain films that have absolutely crazy story. Jaws, Apocalypse Now, The Godfather. This is one of them. This story is nuts, and I'm going to try to keep it straight, but I'm not always going to succeed. But it starts in this 73, 74 with Ilya Salkind, who is the son of producer Alexander Salkind. Now, Alexander Salkind was born in 1921 in Danzig, Russian Jewish family. I don't know what happened to him during the Holocaust, but I do know he made it to France, where he started producing films in France, including The Trial by Orson Welles.
Oh, wow. Anthony Perkins.
Anthony Perkins, yeah. So the guy produces Orson Welles, and then they produce, and now Ilya, his son, who's maybe 22, 23, starts working with him on a little movie called The Three Musketeers. So they make The Three Musketeers, which they initially start to make as one film and then realize they have so much material that they decide to turn it into The Three Musketeers and The Four Musketeers, which is what leads them to make the decisions that they're going to make in terms of making two films at once with Superman.
Wow.
So because they were so successful with The Three Musketeers, they're like, oh, this totally works. And so Ilya goes to his dad and says, hey, we should do Superman. Nobody wants them to do this. And again, this is like 74. So you think of where filmmaking is at that moment. Like no one is, and to be really clear, people today cannot understand this. But comic books were not serious filmmaking. Nobody wanted to make comic book films, and that's why Superman is a really key transitional film. Like can you imagine they go to Warner Brothers and go, Warner Brothers, we want to make a film with Superman. And Warner Brothers says, absolutely not. We don't, it'll lose, we're going to lose all our money. Nobody wants to see this. Like that's how different the world is in the mid 70s.
And not just that. I mean, like the type of movies that are being made, Steve, which I think you're alluding to as well. These are anti-establishment, questioning our systemic structures. Superman, that's so childish. I don't know if I want to see. Why would anyone want to see a film like that? But I always think this film gets forgotten when people talk about Star Wars and Jaws as these seminal blockbuster films. Superman belongs in that conversation, and of course, just as much heft and just as much weight for how it changed cinema. And in the end, was something that was the foundational piece of us doing superhero cinema now.
Well, and this is this weird thing. This is the transitional moment. And you're so right, John, because Superman is absolutely part of this transition, because previous to this moment, prestige films that studios spent a lot of money on were serious material, not popcorn material. And Jaws, Star Wars, and Superman makes that transition, because they go to Warner Brothers and say, hey, we want to spend, $30-40 million on a comic book thing. And Warner Brothers is absolutely not. We would only spend that money on original material.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy? Considering like where we are today? And so what they do is they say, listen, okay, you really want to make this movie, we'll do a negative pickup. So what a negative pickup means is you guys go raise all the money, you make the movie, and if you succeed in making the movie, we will distribute it and we will give you some of your money back. But we're not going to pay for a dime up front. So that's what they do.
Wow.
Yep.
They pay to make the movie. They pay the studio to make the movie. Madness.
So now they have to go to DC Comics, and DC is very protective of the character. And what they are talking about is like, this could be the next James Bond, like a series of movies that goes on, which really Bond is the only thing where that really exists at this point. There's a lot of pressure to do it Batman style, the Batman TV show style, with lots and lots of jokes. They bring in their first potential screenwriter to the suite at the Plaza Hotel, and that is William Goldman.
Oh, wow.
Was the first possible screenwriter. That didn't work out. Then they call in Mario Puzo. And Mario Puzo comes in. They get along great. They have a great pitch. And I mean, he's obviously big stuff. This is, 75, 76 now, right after Godfather and Godfather 2. Yeah. So they offer him $600,000 to write both two movies.
$600,000 in the 1970s.
Yeah.
Oof, huge money. So now they're with Puzo and they're in talks with DC. And I don't quite understand this. And I don't know if you guys know any more about this than I do. But DC said we want approval of all the actors. But they didn't seem like they were just saying we want approval of an actor playing this particular part. It was more like they're like, we would like to be in business with any of these actors. We don't know what parts they would play. And so they said, yes, we will approve Dustin Hoffman, Robert Redford, Al Pacino, Stallone, Steve McQueen, James Caan, Clint Eastwood, Muhammad Ali. I don't know what character, but DC was like, yeah, Coppola, or DC was like, yeah, we'll totally have Muhammad Ali in our Superman movie. So they're just like putting out actors that they'd work with.
Wow.
That's wild. That is wild. But it's also like a typical, I mean, not typical, but it's like a company that actually doesn't know how anything works, but it's like a movie. Sure. Muhammad Ali, like, great.
Yeah.
Like there's no context to it. It's like, here's actors that we know that would be cool.
By the way, one of my prized possession from this era of comic book collecting is my giant size Superman versus Muhammad Ali comic. Written by Denny O'Neil, art by Neil Adams. It's awesome. Anyway, so now they go off to talk to some directors. Well, first person they talk to is George Lucas. He's made THX 1138, just had this big hit called American Graffiti, and he goes, yeah, fellas, I'm going to be busy with this other movie. so he goes off to make Star Wars. Then Ilya, the son, sees a little movie called Sugarland Express and goes, you know what? This Steven Spielberg guy, I think he's real talented. And so they go to Spielberg, and Spielberg said he wanted to do it, but he was busy with this other movie, and he was trapped on Martha's Vineyard. And Dad Alexander says, "Why don't we wait till his Big Fish movie comes out, and then we'll decide if we want to work with him." So then they go to Francis Ford Coppola. They go to William Friedkin. They are in serious talks, apparently, like almost signed a deal with Sam Peckinpah.
Oof. The Wild Bunches, Sam Peckinpah. Straw Dogs, Sam Peckinpah. Oh, my God.
Yep.
That's the Zack Snyder Superman in the 1970s. 100%.
Oh, man.
100%.
They brought in Robert Benton at one point. I read they were in talks with George Cukor, classic film director. He's 80 years old, to come in and direct Superman at one point. And finally, they agree on director Guy Hamilton. And Guy Hamilton, for those of you who don't know, directed a whole bunch of Bond movies, Goldfinger, Diamonds Are Forever, Live and Let Die, Man with the Golden Gun, and a movie that I know is close to yours and my hearts, John, which is Remo Williams' The Adventure Begins.
Hey, come on.
Wow.
Fred Ward, buddy. Come on.
So great. Guy Hamilton's on board. We got Mario Puzo working on a script. He turns in a 400-page script for 2 movies. So for those of you who don't know, generally you kind of go, it's about a minute a page. So a 2-hour script is around 120 pages. So he brings in 200-minute movies. And apparently it was very Batman TV show-like. Oh, there were cameos from TV personalities, like Kojak would pop up in it. Like that's kind of what it was. Donner said that the Puzo script was just completely unmakeable. But they're moving forward. That's the thing. This is the thing, is like they're like, we're making this movie. So they're pushing forward, and they are still going after more actors. Wow. At one point, they really want Robert Redford to play Superman. And the producer and Lynn Stallmaster, who's the casting director, keeps saying, no, we need unknowns. But they're like going after people. They brought everybody they're in talks with. Burt Reynolds. I already mentioned Stallone. How about an athlete named Bruce Jenner, winner of the decathlon in 1976, was brought into audition for Superman?
I am not touching that one.
Arnold is lobbying seriously to play Superman.
Oh my God.
They audition James Brolin, Lyle Wagner, Christopher Walken comes in, Nick Nolte, John Forsythe, Chris Christopherson, Charles Bronson, Warren Beatty, Neil Diamond comes in to audition for Superman. Yeah. And I swear to God, this is true. At one point, like, the wife of the producer is getting her teeth cleaned and looks up the dentist and says, "You look like Superman." So they brought her dentist in and put him in the suit to audition for Superman.
Like Neil Diamond in the Superman outfit in the 1970s.
What's crazy about this story is how not crazy it is. I mean, it is crazy, but like when we think of movies, particularly classic movies, and you think of these things like Christopher Reeve and Margot Kidder, you think of these moments, you think of how a movie turned out, and it's way more surprising that we get as many good movies as we get versus how many bad movies make sense to me. The number of random decisions that have to get made for a good movie to get made, like for a good movie to get made, is actually a miracle.
This is why I'm so bugged by all, and you guys have to deal with it all the time. I don't have to really deal with it, but all the arguments about what Superman was supposed to be or what people are doing wrong without seeing the movie is like all of those people have no fucking idea what making a movie is actually like.
Yeah.
Like it's just so, it's not like you go like, I have made this decision and then I do this thing. It's that you're scrambling constantly to try to keep the ship moving forward, desperately hoping it doesn't sink. That's what movie making is like.
Yeah.
How about this one? $4 million to Paul Newman to play Lex, Superman, or Jor-El, whatever he wants.
Wow.
It's just
At
crazy.
least they had a really strong creative vision.
Yeah, exactly. So, and all the time, Lynn Stallmaster, who's the casting director, cast The Graduate, one of the great casting directors of all time, is saying, you really should look at this Christopher Reeve kid. Now, we'll talk more about it as we go along, but I'll give you a little bit of background. So he studied at Juilliard, came in with Robin Williams. They became lifelong friends. I love this quote from John Houseman. John Houseman, producer of Citizen Kane. He, a very important theater person. Yeah. He had just won an Oscar for Best Supporting Actor for doing The Paper Chase. And he is now at Juilliard as one of the instructors. And he pulls Christopher Reeve aside and says, Mr. Reeve, it is terribly important that you become a serious classical actor. Unless, of course, they offer you a shitload of money to do something else. Which I just
good
love.
Advice.
It's good advice. He ended up acting in the Love of Life soap opera to pay his tuition at Juilliard. And he made a deal with him. It's like, look, I'm just paying this so I can keep in school. It can't interfere with my school schedule. But strangely enough, Christopher Reeve on this soap opera became very popular. And so they kept giving him more time. He's like, no, I can't. I got to keep doing school. And they're like, you signed a contract. So he had to drop out of Juilliard in order to keep doing this soap opera.
Wow.
He gets cast by Katharine Hepburn in a Broadway play called A Matter of Gravity as her grandson. And she called up the soap opera and said, darlings, you must change this boy's schedule. And then they said, okay. He was, by the way, very young and very skinny when this process started. 6'4" and 175 pounds. That is a skinny dude.
Wow.
Yep.
So we'll come back to him a little bit later. But what's happening very much mirrors The Godfather, which is Coppola wanted Al Pacino and kept putting him back in the mix, and the studio and everybody else kept saying no. Lynn Stallmaster wanted Christopher Reeve and kept putting him back in the mix, and everyone was saying no. We'll discuss how Brando gets cast in this movie a little later, but here's an important piece of information, which is that they were going to shoot all the set stuff, all the studio stuff in Italy, at a movie studio in Italy. They cast Brando. They're getting ready to shoot. And the thing about casting Brando and Gene Hackman is that they had dates that were hard dates. They had to shoot. So Brando had 2 weeks. I think Hackman had 3. And that was the only time they could shoot. And if they didn't shoot him then, it's pay or play, which means that they just have to pay him off and still cast somebody else. They haven't cast Superman or Lois. They don't have leads, but they are barreling towards dates that they have to shoot. And they are going to shoot on stages in Italy. And right before, I think this is weeks before they're supposed to shoot, they hear that there's a warrant out for Marlon Brando in Italy because of Last Tango of Paris, which is considered obscene in Italy.
Yeah.
So he cannot go to Italy because he will be arrested. So at the last minute, they switched to Pinewood Studios in London. Unfortunately, Guy Hamilton, the director, is what's called a tax refugee from the United Kingdom, which means he can legally only spend 30 days out of a year in England or he will be arrested.
Wow.
And so the fact that they couldn't shoot in Italy because Brando was going to be arrested meant that Guy Hamilton at the last minute had to drop out of this movie.
Wow.
I mean, isn't this crazy?
Yeah.
And so now they call up Richard Donner, who had made The Omen, which the producers liked. Donner says he answered the phone on the toilet where they offered him $1 million to direct the 2 movies, which is huge money.
Yeah.
Absolutely huge.
And he said it's the best shit he's ever taken.
Right? So he brings on Tom Mankiewicz, who is the son of Joseph Mankiewicz and the nephew of Herman Mankiewicz, obviously Hollywood royalty, to rewrite the script. They go into production on both films on March 14th, 1977. There were 19 months of shooting. This is the largest budget ever to date, $55 million, although it's for 2 films, 11 crews, 3 continents, 1,000 crew members, and they're shooting everything for both movies simultaneously. So if you're doing a shot in The Fortress of Solitude, you shoot all the movie 1 stuff for The Fortress of Solitude and the movie 2 stuff. Same with Daily Planet, same with every single other location. They're shooting all of this at the same time, which is totally crazy.
Yeah.
And Spielberg is making Close Encounters. George Lucas has just finished up Star Wars when they start shooting. I mean, this is all like happening all at the same time. All right. That took a long time to get here. But would you like to get into the film?
Let's do it.
Yeah, I'm ready.
By the way, when it starts up, the first thing we see is dedicated with love and respect to Jeffrey Unsworth, OBE. And that's the cinematographer. He also filmed 2001: A Space Odyssey. A lot of connections with that movie, as well as Cabaret, which he won the Oscar for, I think.
In the decade of the 1930s, even the great city of Metropolis was not spared the ravages of the worldwide depression.
And I always forget that we start with this weird curtains and old-fashioned thing in 1930. I don't understand why we're looking at 1938 in the Daily Planet, but also it's weird to me. It's a weird opening.
It's a very weird opening that I like a lot. Like, you're right. I think there's something about it that, if I were to guess, and I don't know specifically, but because of everything you guys were saying about films at the time and how movies were a little bit more real and gritty and about what was going on in the world, giving you that curtain, I think there's something just inherent in, we are going to tell you a story that's a bit more theatrical. And the curtain rises, and we're talking about the Metropolis of the comic books in a way that sort of lets you know this was going to be a comic book movie. Now, Donner went on to go make a movie that was a lot more grounded than what people were thinking a comic book movie was going to be. But I do think opening with the curtain coming up and the comic book panel, even though we almost instantly go to this more grounded, realistic version of things, makes you go, oh, okay, for the 70s, for the late 70s, this is a little bit heightened compared to what we are used to.
Right.
I also think it's some people talk about counter programming, right? Sometimes being rebellious in a world of rebellion is to go back to the beginning of nostalgia and to evoke nostalgia to a simpler time. And so having the guts to open it with this curtain showing the action comic, it's in black and white, and they're essentially saying, we're going to appeal to that 5-year-old kid inside of you with this beginning. And if you're into this movie, this is how we're going to hook you right off the bat, because you remember reading these comics. You remember Superman in your life. You remember being a kid and growing up with Superman. We're going to bring you back to that time. And I thought that, I always think this is and I always forget about it too, Steve, yet I think it's always a very welcomed opening to this movie and makes it very clear the intention of the energy of this movie is going to be.
You might say that it's the real punk rock.
Hey,
I love that. I love that so much. That's such a great thing. Because boy, is that how I feel a lot of the time. So we go up into space, past the moon, and this music starts to build, and then we get this title sequence. And just even before we talk about the music, which obviously we have to talk about the music, I don't think people today can understand how impactful this title design was on 10-year-old Steve when I saw this in the theater. It's like when that Star Wars scroll happened the very first time, it was mind-blowing to see. It doesn't seem mind-blowing now, but this is the same thing. Those titles are amazing. And man, the competition for what is the greatest John Williams theme in history is impossible, and I would never venture. But if one were to have that competition, Superman's on the list.
It's on the list of one of them.
Yeah.
It's top of my list.
But I know we're going to talk about the music, but I do think also what's great about this time of cinema is that, the music in movies in the 70s had kind of gone away from orchestral and like this very sort of classic Hollywood feel of music. And it was really like between George Lucas with Star Wars and Steven Spielberg using John Williams. Like Steven Spielberg uses John Williams on Jaws, and then George Lucas is like, I really want to do like a big orchestral thing. And Steven Spielberg's like, use this guy Johnny that I used. And then John Williams ends up doing this. It's like John Williams, like when we think of movie scores today, like this is when this really made a big comeback in cinema.
Well, and what's interesting too is this is like a true overture. You know, like you get at a musical because it plays all the themes. Here's the whole movie. And I will say that I'm going to say this many, many times. Are these titles, do they go on a long time? Yeah, they go on a long time. But me, 10-year-old me watching this movie, my eyes are as wide as saucers. I could not get enough of this visual with this music.
Yeah. You know, if you're watching it for the first time, it's playing on your anticipation. Like, how long, much longer? I can't wait to start this movie. But if it's working on you, then you're sitting there in a state of anticipation.
It's like a Family Guy joke. Because it goes on that long. Like you go, this is great. You go, man, this is great. Like, look at this. It's going across the screen. All of these big things. This music is so good. And then you're like, this has been going on a while. And then you're like, fuck, is this going to end? And then you kind of come back around. You're like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm in. I'm back in. And then you get to Krypton.
We come push in on this red star, and I think most people listening know this, but this is all before CGI. Anything you see, they had to make in some way. The red star is like a tin of gasoline that they lit on fire.
Oh wow!
And to film, so it's actually something really burning. I will say, I just said obviously the Superman theme is one of the great things of all time. I think the great underrated theme for me is the Krypton theme. The bum 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 bum. I think this build in this moment coming towards Krypton is amazing. It's kind of hosts the planets, I think, is maybe what Williams is referencing a little bit, but it's so powerful.
It feels like a majestic, like a king, like a kingdom, like you're seeing the kingdom of Krypton with the way the score is designed for that. That's a great call, Steve.
Strangely enough, John Williams was not Richard Donner's first choice.
Oh.
It was supposed to be Jerry Goldsmith. And then they had scheduling issues, and so we had to turn to John Williams. And John Williams was brought in late for this. He was he flew to London, and he was like writing every night and scoring the next day. Wow. Like it was some of the themes, the very first time Donner heard these themes was with the London Philharmonic as they're playing them for the first time.
Someday we have to interview a composer and ask them what this story is like. It's like someone saying, it's like when they hear the stories about John Hughes. Oh, he wrote the whole movie over a weekend. Like it must drive writers up a wall to hear that.
Listen, if success is, there's preparation, there's luck, there's a bunch of things that go to it. But when you're good, you're good. And sometimes, being good and having zero time to do something so that you don't have time to second guess yourself, so that you don't have time to get 95,000 notes from 95,000 different executives. When you're just like, oh, the shit hit the fan, we need a solution, let's go. Yeah. And if you've done your homework and you've done your training and you've got it under your belt, that's where the magic happens more often than you would think, I believe.
I think that's fair. But the big thing, and I'll just say this to everyone who wants to listen. The big thing is what you said of done your training and done your practice. Yeah. You don't get to the other, but a lot of people just want to jump to, I'm just going to do something off the spur of the moment and it's going to be awesome. Like, no, it's not. It takes work.
Yes, exactly.
This is an incredible 6-year run that we are still talking about in 2025. Jaws is 75. Star Wars is 77. Close Encounters is 77. Superman is 78, and then Raiders of the Lost Ark is 81. And you can throw in Empire Strikes Back.
Unbelievable.
Isn't Blade Runner 82?
Blade Runner is 82. So Blade Runner is not John Williams. Blade Runner is.
I'm sorry. I thought we were just talking about badass movies. I guess John Williams just scored so many badass movies. Fuck my drag. Keep going.
Yeah, you can add E.T. if you want to go 82. You can add E.T. So that's an incredible run. From 1975 to 1982, 7 years, and some of the most iconic scores that people still hum today of multiple generations. So, I mean, that's
you got to do the Superman, Star Wars, Indiana Jones challenge.
Which is?
What's that?
Can you hum all of those themes back to back and not get confused?
Oh, shoot.
Can you go?
Okay, the main themes.
That's a good short.
The three main themes.
I think that's a good short challenge.
Okay. And then we push in on Krypton. And I got to say, the design of Krypton is one of the most unique, influential, powerful, recognizable designs ever.
Yeah, I've always thought, like, after seeing the movie and as I got older, it's like this is the wink and nod to people who know the Superman comic book. And it has shades of a Fortress of Solitude, being in this winter and these things coming out. Later, when we see the Fortress of Solitude, we see that we can make the connection back to Krypton and the design of Krypton itself from the outside as we're going into the planet.
But also, this will come up constantly throughout, is even like the way the Fortress of Solitude looks in Superman the movie wasn't always the way the Fortress of Solitude was in the comic books.
Right.
Like, I think what's really interesting, and particularly where we're sitting right now with James Gunn's Superman being in theaters, and so much talk about, is this correct? Is this right? Is this the right take on Lois Lane? Is this the right take on Lex Luthor? So most of a good portion of what any person living today argues about when they're arguing about Superman was inspired by this movie, because the way Krypton looks in this movie, the way the Fortress of Solitude looks in this movie, so many things, not necessarily from the comics, more pulled from the 70s and just like this awesome thing that got put together, but was so iconic that what got fed back into comics for the next several decades was inspired. So many different takes in different eras on Krypton, on Jor-El and Lara, on the Fortress of Solitude. We're pulling from the 70s movie that inspired the comics, that inspired the movies. But everything with Superman, when everyone argues about why does everybody hold the 78 Donner in such reverence, it's because so much of what was established in this movie, particularly Krypton, is still what we are pulling from today when we think of what is quote unquote proper for Superman.
Well, that's why the whole proper thing just never has made sense to me, because it's like these are just choices that are made on top of other choices and there's no proper. There's just it's like people have these arguments about what food is authentic, and it's like food is in a constant state of flux. It's cultures meeting other cultures and new things. There's no one moment that you can go, it's like that's the right one. That's not how this works, The design, by the way, we have to talk about John Barry, who is the production designer on this. John Barry, he's got his start working on Cleopatra in 1963 as a draftsman. He designed Kelly's Heroes, Clint Eastwood. He designed Clockwork Orange. And of course, he had just come off of a little gig called Star Wars before jumping on to Superman. And then tragically, he was working second unit as a second unit director on Empire and collapsed and died right after from spinal meningitis, and he was 43.
43.
Oh man.
Yeah. Crazy, right? Yeah. But all of that, this is such a radical and such an exciting design. And the camera kind of flies over the city and we go towards this dome, and then we're inside. The music is extremely powerful. And then we see these huge faces, which I never thought about, but it's totally like the face you see in the classic 1984 Macintosh ad, the Super Ridley Scott ad.
Oh yeah,
with those faces, it's totally that same effect. And now we get to see Marlon Brando. Marlon Brando, by the way, also read the script on the toilet, and of course, Brando, who had been really in a downturn before The Godfather, is now absolutely huge after The Godfather. They paid him a world record at the time, $3.7 million for 2 weeks' work.
Wow!
And he goes to Donner and says, I was thinking, since this is aliens, that it could be that my character is really not a human at all, but either a briefcase or a green bagel that would maybe speak electronically with beeps. Now, there are two explanations that I've heard. One is that he actually wanted this. And another is that this was a test, and he was testing Donner to see if Donner had the spine to push back at him.
That sounds more like Brando, because he did the same thing with what's his face on the Island of Dr. Moreau and on the score with Frank Oz. He has always kind of pushed directors to see how far he can go with them.
Apparently, when he showed up on the set, he walked up to every single cast and crew member there and shook their hand and said, "Hello, I'm Marlon."
Oh, that's nice.
Aww.
That's nice. don't usually hear those stories from him. He also, at this time, no longer learned his lines. And either that's that he was incapable of learning his lines, but what he said was, what they did was they put cue cards everywhere. Every single place his lines are written on things just out of sight. And what he said was that allowed him to be completely in the moment because we don't know what we're about to say before we say it. And now neither does he know what he's about. He just says it right at that moment. That's how he acts.
Man, that is a really good actory excuse for...
Yes,
isn't it?
But you know what? He pulls it off. He pulls it off.
No, he's, yeah.
He doesn't know how to say Krypton, but he pulls it off other than that.
Maybe, did you ever think, Michael, that he is actually using the correct Kryptonian pronunciation and that it's, I mean, he's more likely to say it right than his son who was raised on Earth?
You know what? That could be true. By the way, I would put that in a comic book somewhere. I'd put that in a movie that like on Krypton, they're like, it's Krypton. It's Krypton. What are you talking about? It's Krypton.
Krypton. And apparently it's spelled with a C, or with a K, not a C, because the letters are the same on Krypton. It makes no sense. Anyway, we hear
these indictments that I have brought you today, specific charges listed herein against the individuals, their acts of treason, their ultimate aim of sedition.
And now we see the accused standing in some weird spinning hula hoop thing. Non, which is played by Jack O'Halloran, Ursa, played by Sarah Douglas, and, of course, Terrence Stamp playing General Zod.
Yeah, Jack Halloran, who we recently discussed on a watch-along for Dragnet. He is Emil Muzz in Dragnet.
Emil Muzz!
He is Emil Muzz, former heavyweight boxer out of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And this film and Dragnet are probably the most famous films he's been on, and memorable roles he's played in those films. And Sarah Douglas, an English actress who went on to be in Conan the Destroyer, in numerous episodes of Falcon Crest. She voiced characters in Superman the Animated Series, Batman Beyond, the Green Lantern Animated Series, and even played a character in an episode of the most recent Supergirl series, so very much tied to DC. She was also married to the actor who played Admiral Motti, who gets choked out in A New Hope in Star Wars A New Hope. And of course, Terrence Stamp, you guys know him, British actor, still alive, which I found out this morning during a conversation with Christian Harloff. He is still alive and could come back maybe to play an older Zod. He was in, of course, Wall Street, Young Guns, Adventures of Priscilla, he was nominated for a BAFTA for that. The Limey, he was nominated for Best Supporting Actor Oscar back in 1962 for Billy Budd. And of course, Michael knows this, and our friend Jonathan Gabay, he voiced Jor-El on numerous episodes of Smallville. So going on the other side of the fence for a DC series later on in life.
And then again, just kind of getting into where so many things originated, Ursa and Non as characters were original characters for this movie. Zod predates this from the comics, but Ursa and Non were just like added in for this movie. And yet Ursa and Non have been in comics, animated series. They are a part of Superman lore now because they started here.
And these people sound like pretty scary people. And this is the interesting thing about doing two movies at once. Like, if this was a standalone movie, there's very little reason for this scene. It's just delaying getting us to Superman and getting us to the stuff but it's also so well staged. And I love the whole spinning hula hoop and the way everything looks. I feel like they really did a great job making Krypton feel real, that it has this culture.
It's very stark, which I think is an interesting way to introduce Krypton. It's like this hustling, bustling culture. It's very stark. It's very clear. It's black and white, so to speak. It's so you understand where it's at. And so that when things happen later, and I love this whole scene because the whole scene is in essence, Jor-El condemning people that he knows. Zod and him have an exchange, which I know you're going to get to, Steve, where it's clear that they know each other. And that's alluded to, of course, in the Man of Steel interpretation, that they have a connection and a friendship and a past. Right. And so what happens later, or just a few minutes later in the movie, is the same exact things that he is condemning these three criminals about. The council turns on him. So Zod, in a way, kind of foreshadows in his back and forth with Jor-El what's going to come up here in just a few minutes when he says, "You've disagreed with the council before. You could be a shining voice."
Can I tell you something that literally never occurred to me until this last time watching it, but now just totally jumped out at me? It's like, okay, Jor-El knows the planet is literally about to explode.
Yeah.
And yet he still takes the time to condemn these to go to trial on these people.
Please.
And it's also like, look, the planet's going to blow up. The only people that are going to live are the people that you're sending to prison, which he knows. Right. You know what I mean? Like the whole thing makes very little sense if I think about it, but the scene is great. And as you said, John,
you have heard the evidence. The decision of the council will now be heard.
Guilty. Guilty. Guilty.
And then there's one vote left, which is Jor-El. And it's so great that we have this great actor in Terrence Stamp to deliver this moment because it comes with so much power.
Join us. You have been known to disagree with the council before. Yours could become an important voice in the new order, second only to my own.
Is Jor-El ever tempted by any of this?
No.
I don't think so, no.
I don't either.
You will bow down before me, Jor-El. I swear it. No matter that it takes an eternity, you will bow down before me. Both you and then one day, your heirs.
And again, I mean, I'm just going to keep saying this, but like, even though Zod predates this movie, the modern conception of who Zod is, what Zod is about, what Zod wants, like this is where it came from. Like this is,
right.
We think of Zod the way we think of Zod today. Whether it's Zack Snyder doing Zod in Man of Steel, Zod in the animated series, Zod if we get him down the road in the new DCU, the Zod that we go, oh, that feels right. It's because of this movie and Terrence Stamp.
It's a wide shot. They're suddenly alone. And a super wide shot as that whole dome opens up. It looks really cool.
Yeah.
And these prisoners who were so defiant a moment before suddenly look real scared. Dome rolls back as the light shoots up. And in the distance, we see this flat kind of square, which, Michael, I believe that you just described as an old LP, like an old record album is what it looks like flying in towards them. When I was a kid, because I grew up, I was reading Superman comics. So I knew all about the Phantom Zone. Right. And the Phantom Zone was this place that it was just kind of this other misty dimension you went into. It wasn't a two-dimensional record album coming in that trapped them. This image freaked the shit out of me as a kid.
Oh, yeah.
It's just very upsetting.
Well, the way they even set it up, the fact that it isn't just right there and it takes them out. The dome opens slowly, and then we see off into the distance of space this thing coming. And it's this impending doom that is slowly moving across the screen over and over, turning over and over and over again until it eventually consumes those three and puts them into the Phantom Zone. But the way it's done is almost torturous. And so it's a brutal beginning, an unsettling beginning for sure.
It's also something that I love about like 70s filmmaking where it's all about vibes.
Yeah.
Like this makes no sense.
Right.
Like we're going to put you in the Phantom Zone. Hey, everybody, open up the dome. Here it comes floating through space. Glad it was already on its way. Like in modern day filmmaking, you would have an executive somewhere being like, I have a couple questions about the Phantom Zone and how this actually, did somebody launch this? And if they did, where are, like, there's just so many things that you're like, yeah, I don't know, man, but you're right. Just from a visual, just from the vibes standpoint, it opens up, this thing comes in, they're all like, no. And then all of a sudden they're in the thing and you're like, oh, that's fucked up.
It seems really fucked up. Because I go like, is it, because it looks as if they're very uncomfortable and smushed together in this way.
Oh yeah.
Trapped in and I'm like, so you're in this for eternity now, ostensibly. I mean, this is horrible. You know,
and you can hear Ursa screaming, forgive me, like in a desperate attempt to get out of this situation. Yeah.
By the way, if you're in a jam and you have two other friends and you don't know what to be for Halloween, it's a very simple but effective Halloween costume. Like you get a big black sheet, you cut a square in it, you get some plastic, y'all get in there and just scream and walk around the party, and you're probably going to win the costume contest.
Wow. This is good advice. This is useful stuff.
That sounds like a Brian Leonard costume. He doesn't mind constructing massive cardboard around himself.
So, and then we cut to what I've always known growing up as the Science Council, because Krypton was ruled by a Science Council, and I, even at 6 years old, was a nerd and was like, that's how it should be. We should just rule everything by the Science Council. And the leader of the Science Council is a very recognizable face, which is Trevor Howard.
Yeah, Trevor Howard, a British actor who Steve is in love with from Brief Encounter, the film that we did years ago that Steve turned me on to that I'd never seen before and discussed on the show. He was also in The Third Man, one of our favorite Orson Welles films. He received an Academy Award nomination for Best Actor in 1960 for the film Sons and Lovers. He was in Mutiny on the Bounty, Charge of the Light Brigade, Battle of Britain, Ryan's Daughter, Gandhi, who we've also discussed and done on the show here, and was an Emmy Award recipient and a 3-time Golden Globe nominee. And Michael Vogel may know him from The Great Muppet Caper.
Ooh, wait, who is he in The Great Muppet Caper?
I don't know, man. I haven't seen that one in so long. He's a British dude, tall British dude with leathery skin, interesting face.
Hold on.
I think we need to have the answer to this before we move on.
Okay.
What's his name? Trevor Howard?
Trevor Howard.
I'm going to tell you who he was in the Muppet Caper right now. Oh my God. Is he the guy he's the guy that's having an affair and Gonzo takes his picture. It's a great gag. He goes, Gonzo's like, what does he say? He says, you look great. Your wife looks great too. He goes, that's not my wife. And he's like, next table.
And by the way, now we have new outfits and people are in these totally bizarrely glowing costumes.
Yeah.
I mean, they're super bright. And here's how this came about, which is that the biggest challenge of this whole movie is convincingly getting Superman to fly. It is months and months and months of experimentation and working and failing. And one of the techniques they used was front projection, which is, and I don't entirely understand all the technology involved. It's you're projecting an image on a screen and then Christopher Reeve is flying or acting in front of it. But part of what they're doing is there's this special material. Again, I don't totally understand this, but you basically are shooting at different angles and it has to do with how images play and reflect off the light. And what they use for this front projection is there's this material that came from 3M that is these tiny, tiny, tiny little glass beads embedded in the fabric. And that is what you're doing front projection on. Wow. So they're doing all these experiments with Christopher Reeve trying to get the fucking flying to work. And one day someone leaves a light and aims it at a weird angle at the weird fabric that you use for front projection with all these little tiny glass beads. And that fabric glowed.
Wow.
And they went, whoa, that is really weird. It looks really, really weird on camera. And they went, let's make all of our costumes out of this. That is why all these Kryptonians are wearing these glowing costumes. And it was so delicate that you couldn't touch the costumes with your fingers because the oil of your fingers would rub up on the glass beads and then you get black spots on everybody's costumes. So you had to wear cotton gloves to clean them. It was extremely delicate. The angles had to be just right. The lights had to be just right. But it does look really, really cool.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's nuts.
I do think there is, I mean, not to be like hippy dippy about the universe, but sometimes it's like the answers are all out there in the universe. And if you just get out of your own way, they're just like, wait, like so much of filmmaking and screenwriting and all, like, it almost seems like an accident sometimes. You're like, yeah. I had no idea how to solve for this. And you can either pound your head against the wall and try and force a solution. But sometimes if you just sit, it's Sean Connery in Last Crusade when he sits in the chair and he goes, I find that sometimes if I just sit in the chair, the solution presents itself, and he leans back and the escape hatch opens. You're like, that's kind of how creativity works.
No, it's the weirdest thing where you're totally stuck and there's some random thing you wrote into the script or did much, much earlier that had nothing to do with anything. It was just that you just said, they're in a blue dress or whatever it is. And then you went, the blue dress is the solution to the problem that I'm in. And it happens all the time. And it feels totally magical. One of the things we might notice as we move into this space is that Brando has a Superman S on his chest.
Yeah.
Why does Brando have a Superman S on his chest? Well, the reason is they wrote a scene where Lois Lane comes up with the name Superman.
Oh.
And if Lois Lane invents the name Superman, why did he already have an S on his chest? The reason he already had an S on his chest is that Jor-El wore one as the symbol of the family on Krypton.
Now, I don't know, but would this be, because now, as has been made famous and people talk about all the time, the S stands for either the House of El or it stands for Hope. Like, it's in the comics, it stood for different things, but was this the first time that like they kind of ran into this issue? Like back in the day, nobody really cared, but because they were going to do it this way, is this when that thing started as well, where we're like, ooh, the S has to be something different?
I think so. I mean, they didn't say but I have a strong memory of seeing this as a kid and seeing that on Jor-El's chest and going, "Oh, that's interesting." It's so funny. Like, and again, this goes to stuff we've been talking about of like creating lore. Is like, yeah, creating lore is fun, but sometimes you're creating lore to solve a different problem.
Oh,
you
yeah.
know, that's why we had to do this, to solve this other thing.
You cannot ignore these facts. It's suicide. No, it's worse. It's genocide.
Be warned, Jor-El. The Council has already evaluated this outlandish theory of yours.
So Jor-El, a scientist, is saying that some really bad things are happening to our planet, and for some reason the government is not listening to the scientific data. It's crazy.
Well, they are the Science Council, Steve. That you were so 10-year-old Steve, all about a Science Council. Ooh, the Science Council should run everything. But then once the Science Council doesn't listen, all of a sudden they're the government. Interesting. Yeah. Interesting how we've kind of moved the goalposts here.
Curious. But I like this as a juxtaposition to what we just saw, right? As I mentioned earlier, the idea that Jor-El is doing the council's business and bidding when he's getting rid of the three Zodin's crew. But here the council turns on him, and just as quickly. So in a way, I wish they'd explored this a little bit more. His place with the council, his history with the council. I know you can only have him for 2 weeks with how much you were paying him, but I wish there had been more explored here, because I think this is really interesting, which is why I like that they fleshed it out a little bit more in Man of Steel. We're not going to get into that. I'm just saying I liked it. But I did like the way this went down, because it's a nice little juxtaposition. And as a kid, I didn't catch it, right? But as you're older and you watch, you're like, oh, wow. So the same council the Zod just warned him about and said to us that Jor-El has had issues with in the past is now turning on Jor-El as if he didn't just do their bidding. So it's a fascinating way to look at how this government is working, so to speak, or the Science Council is working on Krypton.
Well, and to Steve's point, I mean, the solving something later on that because it was presented, as much as I was joking about the whole Science Council and Jor-El as a scientist thing, other versions of Superman, in addition to Man of Steel, have dealt with this. I mean, in Superman the Animated Series, Jor-El, at the very beginning of the series, knows that something's going wrong, but nobody else knows because Brainiac has been feeding everyone false information. Or in the new Absolute Superman comic that's out right now, the Science Council, or the leaders of Krypton, 100% know it's going to explode, but aren't telling anybody so that they can build their ships to get off. So again, to Steve's point, a lot of these things that, you know, like you're saying, Johnny, oh, I wish they would have explored it more. But a lot of other creators down the line have taken some of those initial ideas that were presented in this movie and actually done exactly that.
My friends, you know me to be neither rash nor impulsive. And I tell you that we must evacuate this planet immediately.
A woman on the Science Council, Maria Schell, says,
"It isn't that we question your data. The facts are undeniable. It's your conclusions we find unsupportable."
Yeah, and this is Von Da. She's the only one that gets a name, which is interesting. And I wonder if that was a thing. Maybe there was more with her. I don't know. But this is an Austrian-Swiss actress. She is the sister of Maximilian Schell, who we saw in Judgment at Nuremberg, the main German lawyer. She was one of the leading stars of German cinema in the 1950s and 1960s and acted with Pa Kent, Glenn Ford, in a remake of the Oscar-winning film Cimarron in 1960.
Jor-El, be reasonable.
My friend, I've never been otherwise. This madness is yours.
And that's Harry Andrews who's telling him that. That's the third elder. He's an English actor you've seen in The Hill. He was in Moby Dick on the ship there with the Gregory Peck movie. The Ruling Class, The Charge of the Light Brigade, and The Agony and the Ecstasy. I know some of you may not know these movies, but these were classic films back then. So these they definitely cast some really strong actors with legacy names to them.
The decision of the Council is final. Any attempt by you to create a climate of fear and panic among the populace must be deemed by us an act of insurrection.
I mean, this is 1978, right? This idea of one person trying to stand against a council or a government to show them the errors of their ways. He's essentially a whistleblower, and they're telling him to shut the fuck up. I mean, this is like, aren't we getting 3 Mile Island around this time, Steve and Mike, if you guys remember that? So this is like this idea of like, it's very reminiscent and reflective of what's going on in our society as well. At the time.
We just had our discussion on the live show about Jaws, and this is the city shutting down. It's like there's a shark coming to kill us. It's like, no, shut up. Like the idea of a government being unwilling to face major problems that are coming along. Gee, it's never happened in reality.
Will you abide by the council's decision?
I will remain silent. Neither I nor my wife leave Krypton.
Feels like he left a little thing open there. We cut to back at their home, and there is Laura, who is walking through these pillars, these incredible Kryptonian architecture with baby Kal-El wrapped in these brightly colored clothes. And it's amazing how those colors pop.
Oh, yeah.
Because of the way the rest of the set looks.
Yeah, this is Susanna York, who's an English actress who passed in 2011. She was in Tom Jones, They Shoot Horses, Don't They? She was nominated for Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress for They Shoot Horses, Don't They? She was also in A Man for All Seasons, a really good film if you guys haven't watched that one, Battle of Britain and Jane Eyre. And I wonder if you guys recognize her as Mrs. Cratchit in George C. Scott's version of A Christmas Carol. One of her last
I just know the Muppet Christmas Carol, man. I just stick with the best. I don't go to the rest.
That's why I just know the Happy Days Christmas Carol.
But Steve, to your point about the way the colors pop, I mean, I don't know that this is true, but obviously Krypton being as stark as it is very in keeping with a lot of science fiction of the time, a lot of kind of very stark, very bright rooms, stuff like that. But having Krypton be as cold and mostly stark and white and gray as it is really does make those colors pop when you see them. And I think that there's, as you're thinking of sort of the way you want to make the most important colors in your movie pop when it's Superman, the first time you see those and you see the blanket and everything, they really, really do stand out.
And then we get, which I think is really great, is essentially an argument about why send him to Earth.
They're primitives, thousands of years behind us.
He will need that advantage to survive. Their atmosphere will sustain him.
He will defy their gravity.
He will look like one of them.
He won't be one of them.
I think that thematically is setting up so much about what this movie is,
It's funny how you present it, right? Because people are mad about how how Jor-El and Laura said what they say in the new Superman movie. Yet here is them saying it in a much more tender way that, hey, he's going to be better than them. He's going to be, stronger, smarter. And later, Jor-El's even going to say their hearts are weaker than yours. You need to understand what it's like to be human. So it's all about the presentation, right? And how it's going about. Also, harems is a big deal. So, but like everything else, I think, it's very clear that in the lore, it is this idea that Earth people are weaker than Kryptonians, but that's okay because you're there to protect them.
No, I mean, and definitely they are simple and you'll have advantages is different than you should rule over them and fuck as many people as possible. So there's definitely some differences. But I mean, to Steve's point, this is kind of core to Superman being us, but not us is core to all, what we all have our different opinions on which versions of this we like, but Jor-El in this movie gives the, he won't be them. This whole conversation is he'll look like them, but he won't be them. Right. Man of Steel deals with you are not like these people, you are something different. And James Gunn deals with am I more what my parents wanted me to be when I got here? Or am I more what my parents who raised me here say that I like? So this idea of who Superman is and not to get into the politics of it, but being an immigrant, but also being inherently American, which is kind of the thing that Superman is. This speech that they give right here kind of sums down to the core essence of what the contradiction of Superman is, but also what makes Superman so fascinating to so many of us.
He'll be odd. Different.
He'll be fast. Virtually invulnerable.
Isolated. Alone.
He will not be alone.
And holds up this crystal.
He will never be alone.
And anytime those crystals comes up, you hear the sound of them harmonizing. You hear that crystal sign that gets associated with it throughout the movie. We should say that there are two versions of this film. There is the quote unquote extended version and the theatrical version. And I will just say, here's my experience, because I knew that I'd seen this movie a few times in the theater as a little kid. And then I can remember, John, you mentioned it too. when they aired this on ABC, this was a really big deal. And we all stayed home, and I'm watching it on ABC, and I can remember as a kid when it first aired going, I've never seen that shot before.
Yeah.
I've never seen that moment, particularly later when we get to Lois on the train and stuff like that.
Right.
And so like this is one of the ones that happens here is if you're watching the extended version, you can see people on the Science Council have found out that Jor-El has betrayed them and they're getting ready to arrest him.
Yes.
You know, and here's so in general, I think our experiences on the Cine-Files have been that extended versions and director's cuts are frequently not necessary. You know, like there are things that, we had some extra footage and we threw it in.
Right.
I think this one definitely qualifies as we had some extra footage and we threw it in through most of the extended cuts things. But I think because I was a kid and I loved Superman so much, like I like them all, but I wouldn't recommend them. You know what I mean? That's my feelings about them.
Sure, I agree.
I don't know. I like Lois on the Train.
Lois on the Train, I really
Lois
like.
on the
That's
Train is
one.
pretty cool. We'll get there later, but I like that one. That one I'm keeping.
Laura places little baby Kal-El into the thing, and Brando, reading off of various cue cards stored in every possible area, delivers the following speech.
My little Kal-El. But we will never leave you, even in the face of our death. The richness of our lives shall be yours.
I think this is a lovely speech, and there's such a disjointed, odd quality to it. And it's so like mystical and poetic and spiritual in the way he it's just a fascinating sort of moment, I think.
Well, and I think two things about like the whole launching of Kal-El into space and the explosion of Krypton in this speech. I think two things. One, I think Marlon Brando's portrayal of Jor-El is the reason a lot of people right now are so upset about what James Gunn did with Jor-El.
Yeah.
This is all so iconic and so ingrained in our geek pop culture narrative that changing it didn't bother me personally, but I do understand why it bothers people. And also, I would say this scene that we're getting into is what DC has over Marvel. I love Marvel, but what Marvel has always been good at, and what Marvel is good at now with the MCU, is kind of the everyday hero. Guys like, we love these guys. I would love to hang out with these guys and eat shawarma. Our DC heroes take on this mythological element, and everything that happens here, like that we're getting into, the speech that he gives, the launching of the rocket, the Moses on the river overtones, the Christ and his son Jesus overtones, like everything in here wraps up to making this story and what Donner did with this version of it has become so iconic to cinema that this is our modern day mythology. Like what we're witnessing right here is deeper than, I love this movie. It's the reason that Star Wars still holds on. It's just like there's certain things that creep into not just movies that we love, but things that get in us to a deeper level. And to me, and I know to you guys too, because we're all big geeks, Jor-El and Lara sending their baby off in this rocket as Krypton explodes around him and him getting sent off into space to become a savior somewhere else. Like this is the deep mythology shit. This is why I love superheroes.
Well, and it's a great point, Michael. And just to piggyback off what Steve said, for me, I like this performance from Brando, and I like the way he delivers it because he's kind of unknowable. Now, I don't know if this was intentional because we all know the drama around him doing it and how much he was like making fun of it a little bit and whatever. So look, Alec Guinness delivered a great performance in A New Hope, and he was making fun of it kind of the whole time. So, or thought he was maybe lowering himself to be part of it, and then believably so at that time. Who knew what it was going to be? So, but I think there's an earnestness. He's Brando. He's going to deliver a good performance, and it's believable in what he's doing, but it's also unknowable. And so, you're right, Steve. It carries on this kind of mystical quality. But that's the reason why it endures, is what Michael was saying, and people hold on to it because there's something about the way he delivered it that just kind of worked for a majority of people and still keeps working for the people who discover it at young ages all over again, this film, even though it was made in 1978.
All that I have, all that I've learned, everything I feel, all this and more, I bequeath you, my son. You will carry me inside you all the days of your life.
I think we cannot ignore the religious metaphors in what's happening here. I mean, it's not specifically a Jewish phrase, but the phrase "all the days of your life" is something that's frequently used in Jewish prayers. It's a very common phrase. And then the next thing that he says,
you will make my strength your own. See my life through your eyes, as your life will be seen through mine. The Son becomes the Father, and the Father the Son.
You cannot escape the Christ metaphors here.
Totally.
Sending your super powerful child to earth, who is the Son is the Father, and the Father is the Son, and he will be the Savior. I mean, this is like some serious biblical stuff going on here. You have no response to that.
No, I already said, like, I do think this is like the heavy mythology thing. But I also think, you know, what you're saying here, and this is where, again, I know that we're talking about 78 Superman and not Man of Steel and not James Gunn Superman, but this is the ultimate thing, is that when it comes to Superman, getting Superman right is hard, because you have this story that has these very deep mythological, religious, Christ-like tones to it. And on any level, Superman is a savior. So there is a solemnity and a seriousness to this story. And at the same time, he is a big blue Boy Scout wearing red trunks. And he's just a guy who grew up in Kansas. And I think Donner's 78 Superman balances them both really well. And I think when you look at how the Superman fandom is sort of split over two movies, Zack Snyder makes no bones about it. He is 100% interested in the Christ-like overtones of Superman. Yes. And James Gunn has made no secret of the fact that he is interested in the man part of Superman more than the super. So it is interesting how both of these elements coexist in this character that is one of the most iconic characters in pop culture.
I think the images of Jor-El and Lara holding the baby and putting the baby in the ship, I think it's all beautifully done. And then we see that becomes very important, this green crystal rise up. Or like I love this is a great kind of science fiction setup in the sense that I don't know what the hell the crystals do. I don't know how the hell they work. I don't know why the green crystal is special. And yet you kind of get it all, you know, from how they're doing it, which I think works really well. The design of the spaceship of Kal-El's ship is an amazing thing that we've never seen anything like that before.
It's just a big spiny thingamajig. And I think they were smart to do it. Like, we've seen lots of versions where Kal-El's ship is kind of a more traditional rocket, but I kind of love that 1970s, like, this is an alien planet. Who knows what their ships look like vibe. Like, I think that's always a little bit cooler and more interesting.
And the ship is rising up towards the ceiling as the earthquakes are hitting. And we're back with the Science Council, who are all panicked. And the note I wrote here was, yeah, bitches, you were wrong. And then the ship crashes through the ceiling, which to me, I don't know about you guys, but just totally reminds me of the Great Glass Elevator crashing through the ceiling in Willy Wonka.
Oh,
It's just such a similar moment. I think the destruction of Krypton and the way they film it is really actually disturbing, with the people falling and all the way they do it, I think is really upsetting. And now we're heading out into space and the sun and the planet explode. So Warner Brothers did this as a negative pickup, which means we're not giving you any money. We're only guaranteeing that we're going to distribute it in the US. Once they saw the Krypton footage, they went, maybe we'll distribute this a few more other countries. And so things got a little bit more secure after they finished filming this.
Good for them.
Yeah, good for you. And now we fly off through space, where we get is that Kal-El is hearing some recordings of Jor-El or something, learning all the secrets of the universe as he flies through the galaxies to Earth.
Embedded in the crystals before you is the total accumulation of all literature and scientific fact from dozens of other worlds.
I like the way this is done. I like hearing the things and all the different, like you're sampling all these things that could be connected to lore or be creating new lore. And it helps you to believe that this kid is going to have a leg up once he actually lands on Earth. And so, and it mirrors later what we're going to hear when he gets to the Fortress of Solitude, and that Jor-El leads him through another kind of coming of age type of thing.
Well. And I also think both of these, by the way, are connected to 2001: A Space Odyssey. They have that sense of going through and of course the some of the special effects guys worked on 2001, and the techniques they're using to create those images are the same sort of microscopic photography they used that Kubrick used in 2001.
Well, and another thing that it does, in addition to everything that you said, which I agree with, is it gives you the sense of a massive amount of time passing without actually having to have a massive amount of time. Like if he just shot off and then he landed on Earth, you go, that was a quick trip. But by doing this thing where you're fading in and out and you're hearing different things, you just get this sense of an epic journey. Right. Without having to waste the amount of time of going, let's spend 10 minutes flying through space.
Plus, you're not going to have Brando on screen. So to hear him giving this information, you're solidifying this relationship and love that he has for his son. So that when you touch base on it later at the Fortress of Solitude, and really at the end when he is essentially the memory there telling him you're not supposed to mess with Earth, you've established him more firmly by doing it this way. So it could have been just any voices, random voices, but the fact that it's his voice, I think that's important for the father-son dynamic, as you were mentioning earlier, Steve. The biblical aspects of it all, I think, works so well.
Well, and what's so interesting in this, just as with sound design, is that it doesn't matter exactly if you hear everything that they're saying. It's not important, except for one sentence that comes up over everything else, which is,
space and time. It is forbidden for you to interfere with human history.
And it pops just enough that you're going to remember that.
Which, this is like, look, I love Donner Superman. This is one of those things that, in my opinion, is a stupid screenwriting trick.
Whoa! All right.
Well, because here's the thing. He is an alien from another planet who lands on Earth and becomes Earth's savior. Yes. By any stretch, he is affecting Earth's history. There is Earth's history.
Just by appearing.
Like, just by him being there, he affects Earth's history. So the phrase, do not mess with their history, is there for the most specific of things that he chooses to do, for the most specific of reasons at the end of this movie, that is, as much as I love this movie, kind of a dumb thing to do. But so in general, this whole thing, I'm like, I love it. And when you're a kid, you're like, yeah, okay, I get it. But as you get older and you're watching this, you watch this, he goes, and you can do this and da-da-da-da, and you're going to send there and you're going to have a leg up over these people and you're going to have all these abilities, but don't mess with their history. I'm like, okay, Jor-El, I see what you're doing here.
So I am going to agree with your screenwriting point and disagree with your linguistic point. Here's what I think, is that in terms of the screenwriting, I mean, to be honest, the whole time travel thing, I think it totally works in the movie, but it is, as a screenwriter, it is you can just go back and change time. How does that, it's like, it's weak. And this is a plant for that thing to set that up.
Yeah.
Where I disagree with you, he's not changing history. He's changing future. Changing history is going back in time. Right. He is not affecting the history. But again, he is affecting where it's going from now.
And we can also have this argument at the end of the movie when we get there. But so to say don't change their history, if by your logic, is saying, hey, you can do anything, but don't time travel.
Right.
And then you get to the end of the movie and miraculously, it's the one time that he needs to time travel to save one person. And it all works because we love Superman and Lois, and it's fine, but it always irks me because you're like, this is not a thing. Like, you don't warn someone not to time travel. Like, it's like, okay, but don't time travel. Well, I didn't even know I could do that. Well, in case you figure it out, don't.
It'd be easier if he actually said, if that was the case, don't time travel.
but that sounds way dumber. And don't affect their history is a little bit more like broad. So anyways, it all works. It's fine. But this is one of those things where I'm like, okay, well, this is to make the movie work. It's fine.
But you don't catch it when you watch it the first time. You catch the line, but you don't think it's going to do anything. Right.
Well, this is, we've talked many times about the greatest plants and payoffs in film history. And those are the ones that are just totally invisible and unexpected. Yeah. And this is, because Chekhov says if you introduce if you use a gun in the third act, you need to introduce it in the first act. That's what this is, that we have to throw a line there to set up this moment later on, but it's not the strongest of ones that we could do. Anyway, when they're now finally approaching Earth, and we come in on this beautiful pastoral scenery as we're flying in. We see Ma and Pa Kent driving, and this, meteor or something hits nearby.
What was that?
and they swerve to stop, and they get out. And by the way, I'd never thought about this before, but it's like, this must be Sunday because they look like they're in their church-going clothes.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, good point. Wow, that's religious, right? The sun showing it to a childless couple.
And by the way, this is one of the interesting things about this film is it not only has 3 entirely different visual styles, but it has 3 entirely different sort of paces and editorial styles, because you have this stark gray science fiction world of Krypton where people speak in this elevated way. And now we're in this beautiful, scenic middle America, right out of Norman Rockwell sort of pastoral world that has a very slow, laconic sort of pace. Yeah. And then in the end, we're going to go to full screwball comedy world when we get to Metropolis. It's 3 different filming styles.
Yeah.
And they get out of the car and first just looking at their truck because they, got a flat or whatever. And then Ma turns around and then Pa turns and we see that landing strip burnt out path of the ship as it crashed.
What I love about this scene is how do I say this? How simple and normal the Kents look. And again, I think throughout Superman's history, the Kents have been a lot of things, and they've kind of become more assertive. They've become more characters in their own right. In Smallville, she ran for office, and it was John Schneider from the Dukes of Hazzard, and in different cartoons, they've been a little bit younger, they've been a little bit more active, they've been a little bit more involved in his life. There's been all these different things, but I kind of love that in this Superman, the Kents feel very much just like real middle America, a real middle American couple. I think that's always been one of the strengths of them, that there wasn't anything particularly special or amazing about them. They were just good salt of the earth folks in Kansas.
Yeah, and Ma Kent is played by Phyllis Thaxter, who was in a few films, 30 Seconds Over Tokyo, Jim Thorpe, All-American, for those of you who've seen that classic biopic, Springfield Rifle, and The World of Henry Orient, which was a big film in the 1950s, but hadn't done much and then come in to do Superman. So I think she leaves a pretty good iconic role, performance rather, for that role. And then Glenn Ford, who plays the dad. And Glenn Ford, of course, was a massive star he was one of the biggest box office draws in the 1940s, 50s, and 60s. His career lasted 50 years. He passed in 2006 at the age of 90. So into the 2000s, Glenn Ford was around, but he was known for so many great films like Gilda, which is a classic film noir, The Big Heat, which I just bought on the Criterion Collection in 4K, Blackboard Jungle, which is that I think Sidney Poitier's in that one. It's an iconic film about teachers and students. He was also nominated for 3 Golden Globe Awards, including Pocketful of Miracles from 1961.
Sure.
And 5 of his films have been selected for the National Film Registry: Gilda, The Big Heat, Blackboard Jungle, 3:10 to Yuma, which is an awesome Western, the original that people loved, the Russell Crowe one, and Superman. So an incredible legacy, a fantastic actor. So choosing a former matinee idol to play Jonathan Kent, he's a guy who had played regular people. And here's ironic. He's not even American. He's Canadian from Quebec. And so but he radiated that playing the character of, and I think that's so smart. And I'm so glad he took the role because he brings such great weight with such a limited amount of time that he has on the screen. And their chemistry together is so believable as an older childless couple who have this miracle fall into their laps, literally.
I don't know what the least screen time is for the most emotional impact, but this is up there with Glenn Ford. I also want to say you mentioned Jim Thorpe, All-American. That is a movie that should be not remade, but Jim Thorpe is an amazing story that deserves to have a movie made of him.
I agree.
And they walk up to this hole and they look down, and we see, as we hear the Superman theme play, little baby Kal-El climbing out with his arms outstretched to that hole, totally naked, and it is so great. What a great moment in film for me.
Yeah, little baby Kal-El with his little baby Kal-El out. I'd forgotten that he was completely nude, and then I was watching the film. I was like, oh, you couldn't get away with that now. So yeah,
I bet it was a problem getting away with that then.
Oh, maybe.
Yeah. And it's later on. Jonathan's fixing the tire. Ma's got the baby.
All these years, as happy as we've been, how I've prayed and prayed the good Lord see fit to give us a child.
And we're going like, what? You just found this baby?
He's like, ready to go. They got more than they can handle, huh? You better give me one of them babies.
And then again, this is a plant, but it's a necessary one. She says,
You take things easy now, Jonathan. Remember what Doc Fry said about that heart of yours.
Yeah, but that plant is it's a good plant.
It's a perfect plant.
That's a good, like, as opposed to don't go change their history. This is a very natural thing somebody would say. And then when it comes back, you go, oh, okay, I get it. But like, that is the audience clocks, okay, he's got a bad ticker.
The first thing we got to do when we get home is find out who that boy's proper family is.
He hasn't got any. Not around here anyway.
Ma is she has decided. She is like, this is it.
And also, this is something that is pretty consistent in every version of, even like Absolute Superman, the comic, the kind of new take on Superman that's in comics right now. Jonathan Kent is always a little bit like, well, this is kind of weird. Let's see what goes on. Ma Kent is 100% always like, shut the fuck up. This is my baby. Like, I don't care. Baby. This is it. Like, I don't care what you have to say. There's been versions where they find him a little bit older and he's already got some heat vision and he's blowing something up and Jonathan is like, I'm out. And Ma Kent is like, you can get the fuck out. I'm going to take care of this baby. Like, it's always that.
And she already has her alibi.
We could say he's the child of my cousin in North Dakota and just now orphaned.
She is.
I mean, Martha
is on it. Jonathan Kent's like, this baby doesn't have a social security number. She gets out her pen. She's like, 37842. Here it. You got a social security number. He's my baby.
By the way, I've always wondered about things like that. Like, how did they handle all these stuff? He says, Martha.
I think the headcanon is important here, Steve, because we're highlighting something. She's probably come up with this excuse quite a few times.
Oh, yeah.
Martha Kent might have maybe seen babies in hospitals and thought about stealing them and what she would like. Martha's the sweetheart. Don't get me wrong, but yeah, she really wanted a baby. And so she was probably planning this out if this miracle ever came about. So now that it came about, especially on a Sunday, she's ready to go that this thing has shown up. So I think that's so funny to see her do all that.
And again, this is why this scene is so perfectly constructed, because there's no way Jonathan is going to accept this. It's absolutely wrong. And he starts to argue with her while there's absolutely no way they can do that. When the jack gives way, the truck starts to fall. It's filmed perfectly. Martha runs to grab him to pull him out of the way, but neither of them get very far. And for some reason, they don't get crushed by a truck. And they're just holding each other. And they have the moment of realizing they're still alive. And then they turn and look, and there is baby Clark holding up the truck over his head. We hear the theme. They react to it. They look back to the ship, then back at him, and there is a fantastic little smile from that kid. It's a perfect movie moment.
To me, this is the moment that sells me on Superman. Yeah. Like Krypton's great. It's cool. The landing, the whole bit. When he lifts the car and sort of the serious but mildly comedic double take, like the here to here, like it just all works perfectly and kind of feels comic booky. Like this feels like panels of a comic book, and this is where the magic of the movie really kicks in for me.
Cut to, it's a few years later. We're now just fully in the 50s. It's football practice, and a young Clark Kent, Jeff East, is the equipment guy at the football practice.
Yeah, this guy, Midwest actor from Missouri. He played Huckleberry Finn in the film of the same name and Huckleberry Finn in the Tom Sawyer film in the 1970s. So he had a little bit of experience as an actor and then got this role here, but he didn't do much of note after Superman. He was in The Day After, that famous nuclear war film from 1980s. He was in an episode of MASH, How the West Was Won, and even had an episode of Doogie Howser. But from what I read here, he moved back home, took over his father's real estate business, and just did that for the rest of his life. So I didn't see anything else that he's been doing since that time. So, but he is a perfect teenage Clark Kent. Oh my God, he's perfect.
Did he ever, in his father's real estate company, have the desire to like corner the market on some not coastline that may be in the middle of Nevada? Anything like that? No, nothing? No, nothing. Clark's job as the equipment guy is to clean everything up and wash all the uniforms and stuff.
Lana, don't bother with these, huh?
Thank you, Clark.
Sure.
Listen, a whole bunch of us are going up to Mary Ellen's, play some records. Would you like to come?
Sure. Sounds like it'd be a lot of fun.
And Clark speaks to her, except that his voice sounds very different. It seems like it's almost not coming out of his mouth. Because that's Christopher Reeve, who dubbed all of Jeffy's
Poor guy.
lines.
I did not even know that until
Yeah.
the last few years sometimes, because I just didn't even make the connection. It isn't until he's with his mom, which we'll get to. I know that's after his father's died. That's the moment where I was like, oh, that is Christopher Reeve.
Yeah.
So I thought this was really well done. And that's Diane Sherry Case, who's playing Lana Lang, and she didn't do much before, didn't do much after, but it's a nice Lana Lang, and it kind of reminiscent of what we're going to get from Annette O'Toole years later as Lana Lang, and then later, of course, Ma Kent herself in the Smallville series.
Ken can't make it. They got a lot of work to do.
What are you talking about? I just finished stacking all of it.
And we see that all the hard work, the jerks on the football team messed that all up, and now he can't go with the friends to listen to records.
Poor guy. This is all very
Classic,
Peter. It's very
sort of.
classic superhero. It's very Peter Parker-y. It's I could do amazing things. I could probably restack all that in about 2 seconds, but I can't, because then you would know, like, this is I have this thing that I can't talk about. Like, This is just classic superhero 101 stuff, but it's all done really, really well.
They drive off in their cool kind of Woody convertible thing, and angry Clark is tossing around some pom-poms. And after they drive out of sight, he has a football, watches them drive away, and then he kicks the ball, which flies miles away. By the way, this football is made out of wood and was fired out of an air cannon.
Oh, okay. Shit. I thought you were going to say they had him kick a wood football.
Ooh, brutal. And then we have some very fun music as we watch a train, and there is Clark running along the train. And the way this was hard to figure out how to do, and the way they did it is that there is a truck, and on the truck is a crane, and attached to the crane is a wire, and attached to the wire is the actor, and he is hovering 3 or 4 inches off the ground as the truck drives, and he is running his legs, and then they make sure to put weeds along the pathway he's running so it blocks the fact that his feet are not actually touching the ground.
Yeah.
Wow.
I love this moment, man. It's just so much fun. And the joy on Jeffy's face as he's running. And yes, it looks ridiculous. And if this was CGI, people are like, it's so obvious CGI. I still love the moment. It is so cute. It's so fun. And there's for all the sadness we just got with him and the bullying and all of that, there is a joy here of his powers. And so to see him use his powers for fun instead of anger and kicking a football, I thought was really smart to do that as a counter to what we just saw.
Yeah, no, it's a key thing to the suit. Like, if your life sucks, like if you do a superhero thing where my life sucks because nobody knows I have these powers and I can't reveal it, but then when you're using your powers, you're also in a shitty mood, then your life is just shitty. But your life can be shitty if when you're doing the thing, when you're web slinging through the city, if you're Spidey, or when you're running, when you're young Clark, you're like, well, this still is pretty awesome. And like, that's great. And the other thing I was going to say about just the special effects of it all is, man, people today are spoiled. Like, like when you go back and you watch these old movies and you see these special effects, and of course they look silly. Of course, given like our modern sensibilities of what
sometimes they still look amazing.
Sometimes they look great, but even when they look great, it's like you can see where the trick is often.
Yeah.
You can see the outline where it's been composited, or you can see the thing, you can see that it's clearly stop motion, like whatever it is. But you see it, but the fact that somebody had to figure this thing out, you kind of go, yeah, I kind of see what they're doing, but fuck, man, that's great. Whereas now, where we have the capability to do anything, everyone on social media is like, this movie looks like garbage. These are the visual effects. And you're like, man, get out of here.
And we cut into the train. And this is, as we mentioned before, if you're watching the regular version, we just cut in and we see this little girl with a mother and father watching this kid run. If you cut on the extended version, mom calls that little girl Lois Lane. And I think that is totally worth it. And I wish it had been in the theatrical version.
Yeah. And it's a great homage, of course, to the 1950s Superman, because that's Noelle Neal, who is playing her mom, who played Lois Lane in the TV series. She is the woman who is there in the Lois, get away from the window. And Noelle Neal is classic, iconic Lois Lane actress. She got involved. She was going to be a journalist working for her father, who was an editor of a Minneapolis newspaper. But Bing Crosby saw her and hired her. And that's where at a racetrack in Del Mar, California, which is really weird to near where I live, and got her started in her career. And of course, she played Lois Lane for years on the Superman series, and then didn't reprise, but appeared in Superman Returns as Gertrude Vanderworth in 2006, and sadly passed away in 2016, but played Lois Lane twice more in 2013 and 2013 rather, in something called Superman and the Secret Planet, which is probably a short. But yeah, I was that was one of the things when I found that out when I was watching the movie years ago. I was so jazzed by that little, because I grew up on that series, and so it was cool to see her be a part of it. Yeah.
And what's so crazy is, in addition to honoring her for the TV show, sitting across from her, who doesn't have a line, is Kirk Allen, who played Superman in the 1948 Superman movie and the 1950 movie Man vs. Superman. So we have Lois and Clark both sitting on this train right now.
What a great wink and nod to the older fans. Smart.
It is great because you don't think of, I didn't know this. This is news to me, what you guys are telling me, but I do love it because even in the first major superhero movie that is that led to everything else that we have today, they still did the whole, like, let's honor what came before. Like, we're used to it now that you see, oh, well, so-and-so who was in this, or even in the new Superman, that Christopher Reeve's son as a reporter. And like, we always find those moments. Smallville famously did a great job with it, having Christopher Reeve on the show. Like, there's always sort of those amazing moments. But the fact that this, which I often in my mind think of as the very beginning of it all, and I sometimes forget about the Superman TV series or the things that came before. So it's it's nice to know that even then they were like, hey, we should include these people. This would be a nice nod.
And in the moment that it climaxes with, of him leaping in front of the passing train, is a great shot. I think it's really fun. And you have this top down where you can kind of see Clark running really fast, and you see that convertible with all of his friends, and we realize, like, oh, it's not just that he's running for a reason. And the car pulls up and they go,
Hey, look, there's Clark.
Clark? How'd you get here so fast?
I ran.
and he's just sitting there as casual as can be, leaning against the truck. And just as this is happening, we realize that Pa Kent is also listening to this whole exchange.
Been showing off a bit, haven't you, son?
And you could see he's instantly chagrined.
I didn't mean to show off, Pa. It's just that guys like that Brad, I just want to tear them apart.
Yeah, I know.
It's, we already said it before, but what Glenn Ford does with this screen time and with this moment, I could watch this monologue over and over again. It's so good.
Yeah, I know. You can do all these amazing things, and sometimes you think that you will just go bust unless you can tell people about it, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, every time I get the football, I can make a touchdown.
That's for sure.
Every time.
Yeah.
I mean, is it showing off and somebody's doing the things he's capable of doing? Is
No.
a bird showing off when it flies?
No.
What do you think about this scene, guys?
I mean, not since Kevin Costner in Man of Steel have I heard
Don't you fucking start.
That was for Johnny. No, I think it's great. I think this is something we'll talk about it again when we get to the Fortress of Solitude, but I think one of the big things that defines how you think of Superman is tied to who do you think brought Superman up to be the guy that he became. And this movie makes an argument for both. Like the things that Jonathan Kent says to Clark in this scene kind of go, okay, this is where this guy came from. But then he gets to the Fortress of Solitude, and his Jor-El is kind of there to say, well, this is what I want you to do. So do you feel like Superman is Superman because of the man who raised him, or because of the man who sent him to Earth? And this movie kind of gives you both of those things. I know where I stand. So what Jonathan Kent says is always way more important to me than what Jor-El says. And so I love this scene.
Yeah, I have to agree with that. Jor-El is the one who provides guidance. Jonathan is the one who provides the foundation for that guidance to be adhered to. And I think he's so essential. And this is such a beautiful, and this is why you're blessed to cast an actor like Glenn Ford, who understands how to play a scene like this, puts his arm around him. There's a real kind of sense of love for his son and understanding. Yeah, I know you bust, but you're meant for something. It's something that as you get older, you realize these things, and you're meant for more than just scoring touchdowns, son. Like, there's more. And So how many fathers have to have these conversations with their sons sometimes, or daughters who don't, who have this thing and they're looking at it in such a small way. And it's like, you're meant for more. There's more here. You just don't see it right now. And so I think it's beautiful the way it's delivered, so that he's speaking to Clark's feelings in an understanding way, as opposed to being like, well, son, I mean, scoring touchdowns it's not that big of a deal, really. He's more speaking to it and validating his feelings about it, but then also trying to get him to see that there's a bigger picture and a bigger purpose for him in this life. And, Michael make fun of it all he wants. I think Costner said the same thing right by that truck when he's saying, yeah, maybe, but like there's something more here for you. You're meant to do more. Let me show you why. So I think it's very
that is an argument for Geek Buddies or for another day. So I will let you take that to it. We'll take that to another podcast, but I don't agree. But we'll save that for another day.
Fair point. But I think the job of Jonathan Kent is always to show affection for his son and guide his son. And even in the new Superman movie, right, when he goes back home and he's got that struggle, it's Pa Kent who comes out and sits on the bench and reminds him, right? And so you don't get that moment at his beginning phase. You see the moment while he's knee-deep being Superman, but the moment is still powerful, and Jonathan Kent has done his job. So I love that.
So the question of like, what does it mean to be a father is this one hits pretty close to home as the father of an adopted son.
Right.
There's a lot, like the language that we use is that we would say that someone is their birth father or their birth mother. And I would, and because when people come to me, and this happens a lot when you have an adopted kid, is someone will come to me and they'll say, oh, so what's his father like? And I'm like, I'm his father. Because it's hard to separate out the meaning of what does it mean to be a father.
Right.
Yeah. And of course, biologically, I am not Jackson's father. I'm his adopted father, or some people would say the forever father. But the person who was there and changed the fucking diapers, and the person who was there when they came home upset from school, and the person who had to deal with whatever their thing or what they were struggling with or what they're upset with day and night and day, year after year after year after year, that's what it means to be a father. And so Jor-El is certainly his biological parent and has bequeathed to him knowledge and power and all this stuff. And I'm not putting down Jor-El, but Jonathan's the guy who's been fucking there.
Yeah.
That's what it means to be a father, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, look, that other man, he may have been his father, but he wasn't.
Come on, man. Don't do that to me.
You're his daddy.
Don't do that to me. That line gets me every time.
I know it does. I think it applies here. Steve, that other man may have been his father, but he wasn't his daddy. You're his daddy.
When you first came to us, we thought that people would come and take you away because when they found out, the things you could do, and that worried us a lot.
I like that is that it fills in 15 years of history, of like how we got here.
A father being scared of what would happen to their son if he revealed himself.
Listen, I am a guest on your podcast, and I am trying to be very respectful, but if you keep trying to poke the bear, the geek bear is going to poke back.
Here's why I am going to interrupt, and there will be no further bear poking. Because the reason that I don't want to talk about that is the next moment is one of the most moving and powerful moments in any comic book movie ever.
Okay, relax. Stop trying to control this. Okay.
And I want to focus.
It's fine. Go ahead.
He says, and this line hit me totally differently watching it this time than it has in the past.
Then a man gets older and he thinks very differently and things get very clear.
I get this. Like now in my 50s, I never had that things become very clear thing. But I'm having it more and more now.
Yeah, all of us, I hope, are having it more and more as we get older.
Not me. I'm not there yet.
Well, you're not as old as I am.
He's getting there, though.
And there's one thing I do know, son, and that is you are here for a reason. I don't know whose reason, whatever the reason is. Maybe it's because, I don't know. But I do know one thing. It's not to score touchdowns.
Yeah, like I was saying, it's so important. Such an important line.
This is the equivalent of with great power comes great responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, 100%.
That is essentially what this moment is. And Clark hears him and they hug. And then he says, and it's so upsetting to me, he says, I'll race you to it. And he challenges his dad to race. And I'm not saying that Clark making dad race caused the heart attack, But I am saying that if I were Clark, I would be thinking about that for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. Has shades of Batman a little bit, right? Like the father dying and the guilt of all of that. But yeah.
And Dad runs after him for a bit, and Ma's on the porch with a pitcher of lemonade sitting there, and Dad runs into frame. And I'm just going to say, this might be in the top 10 most moving deaths in cinema for me. There's something about the simplicity of this moment and how it's filmed, and fucking Glenn Ford's performance as he moves into frame and he's holding his forearm, and you see him look at his forearm, and then he knows the second before it happens that he is going. I mean, I think he knows he's about to die.
Yeah.
And he says,
"Oh no."
And he goes down.
Jonathan!
Yeah, this moment here is great because, as you said, Steve, the performance from Glenn Ford, the grabbing of the arm, but also if you watch his mouth, he tries to say Martha. You can see his lips form the M, but he can't get it out in time. And then he just, and the way he passes, it isn't a big, the eyes just go. And it's amazing. It's so amazing. And Phyllis's reaction, the actress playing Martha, is great, right? Just doesn't see it initially, then sees it. And you see her face completely drop because she knew this was coming at some point. And there it is. And it's I cry every time. I mean, I'm a tears every time because the oh no, I think rivals. For me, I cry every time Kirk dies when he says, oh my. And to me, those oh lines get me in those moments when they're really well performed.
I also think from a screenwriting standpoint, when you watch going from, hey, Clark, do you want to go out? No, you can't. These people fucked with you. I run. I love running. I was showing off. Dad gives me advice. Dad has a heart attack. In the amount of screen time that actually takes, the amount of information that you get about Clark Kent, his childhood, what it was like growing up, what it was like for the Kents, this really heartfelt with great power comes great responsibility moment. You get all of this. It's a really great lesson in screenwriting because a lot of people, especially younger screenwriters, would go, well, I'm going to spend a good 10 minutes on Clark and his friends, and then we have to have this big set piece, and then we're going to do this. Like, you get so much information and good information, and you get so much emotionally impactful stuff, and it's just like boom, boom, boom on top of each other, which is really just impressive from a technical standpoint as much as it is emotional and powerful and really impactful.
And I love the fact that he's not by his side. Like, he's out playing with the dog in a section of the farm.
Yeah.
And has no, so like, cause like if once his father started to go, he might've been tempted to grab his father and just run to the nearest hospital, but him running in and then seeing that his father is gone, like it's such a powerful, and it's reminiscent. They shoot it. I love the way Donner shoots this from far away. You don't get to have this intimate moment close up in your face. You have to watch it from the distance, right? We were just in close up with Pa Kent, but and Ma Kent reacting to the loss. And then we see Clark run over, and then we pull back, and pulling back adds to the weight of this moment and the beauty of this moment, because we just feel that even more so than if we just like were in close up with all these actors. So it's a smart decision.
I think it's beautifully done. And we spend a lot of, we talk a lot about the great filmmakers of all time, Kubrick's and Kurosawa's and Spielberg's and Orson Welles and stuff like that. And there's this other group of filmmakers who can be great.
Yeah, right.
They're not always great, but Donner, when he's on, is great.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. And this is an example of it. And we dissolve to long panning shot of the countryside heading up towards this funeral. We see this little cemetery on the top of the hill. Again, it's all idyllic and beautiful. And by the way, when they were out driving back and forth to set, Donner's in the car with John Barry, the production designer, and they drive by this beautiful little white country church. And Donner turns to Barry and says, "That church is beautiful. We got to have this for the cemetery set. You got to build a church." And he shows up. It's 5 a.m. They're driving to set. and they're pulling up to the set. The sun is just coming up, and he looks, and there on the hill behind the cemetery is the white church that they had seen when they were driving. John Barry did build it. It's about 5 feet tall. It's just they built a little tiny forced perspective church on the hill, and it's all beautiful. We have the funeral. It's after Clark turns to Ma and says, and this is, by the way, where I really noticed that it's Christopher Reeve's voice.
All those things I can do, all those powers. And I couldn't even save him.
The combo of I couldn't even save him with you're here for a reason is just central thematically to Superman in this whole film.
And all those powers and I couldn't save him in a much better way than don't fuck with the Earth's history sets you up for who Superman is, but it also sets you up for the end of this movie with Lois.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And there's something universal in that, isn't there? Like how many people have lost their fathers and like maybe could have done something in those moments or felt like they could have done something, but it's not possible. And so there's a universal feeling of that, a helplessness to stop the inevitable. And so, yeah, it's a beautiful moment.
It's nighttime. Where you see, like, you know, all the production design stuff of capturing this time in this space is really great. Like the old fashioned radio and the way the lights work. And it's sort of golden hour. He looks out the window. We hear some strange sound. We go into the barn. The music to me here is very reminiscent of like the kind of mysterious sea theme from Jaws. It's got that sort of tonal quality to it. Go into the barn, lifts up this burlap sack, revealing this hole. And inside we see that single green crystal that we saw originally with Jor-El, which I, as a kid, went immediately, obviously, don't touch it. That's kryptonite. Right. But which, of course, it isn't.
Steve, I don't know if we touched on this or if you discovered this in your research when we were doing The Natural. It's very reminiscent of The Natural. Father's just died. The lightning strikes the tree. It's at night. He wakes up and from the lightning goes out there and eventually carves the bat out of that tree. So there's this kind of coming of age moment that happens, which happens when all of us lose our fathers. We come of age in a way. And so there is this thing with him as well. And I think this is so well done. And it adds on to the heroic energy that's slowly building, right? Yeah.
That's what I was just going to say. Similar to The Natural, it's like this is destiny. Yeah. You know, this is special mystical destiny of the hero who has to go on the quest.
Well, and it's what makes the moment work despite that. Like usually in a movie, you kind of go, well, this thing happened, which led to this thing, and the character did this, which therefore leads to this scene. This is one of those moments where you get to the end of the funeral, and you kind of go, okay. And then you kind of get to this next moment. And this next moment, why does this moment happen right now? It's not like the spaceship went, well, Pa kicked the bucket, time for me to heat up. You know, like there's no reason for it, but everything that you guys are saying, both in the way that it's shot and in that bigger sort of hero's journey kind of way, this is the moment that Clark needs to step up and like the moment of discovery is there. So the lady in the lake is going to give you the sword. Like that's what kind of happens right here.
It's interesting because usually you're making like plot sort of choices intellectually. Like this idea leads to the, like someone discovers the clue and that clue leads them to this thing where they discover this next thing. This is following emotionally. It makes sense. Right. You know what I mean? Like it's not that there's some reason why he had to go in the barn. It's just like this is the right moment for this to happen, you know?
Well, and it raises the like. So I'll give you a different way that this could work, but I kind of like this more. Like way more logical for Clark to be mourning and Martha to come in and go, "We were going to show you this when you're older, but I know your dad would have wanted you to see this." That is a version of this naturally makes sense that she is thinking about this and her and Jonathan have had this conversation. And now that he's gone, she's like, I need to show you this. Would have been way more logical, but something about the way this is done feels more like fate, like destiny, like mythology.
Martha looks out the window to see Clark way in the distance. Again, beautiful magic hour sort of shot. There is a classic box of Cheerios in the foreground. $20,000 for that product placement.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow. Nice. I wish someone would give us some product placement for the Cine-Files. I mean, I'd put some Cheerios up in this shot.
Come on.
And then we have this incredible high angle shot of the camera craning to Ma, who's slowly walking out into the field to meet Clark. And you could see the one pathway through the wheat. And so when you have one pathway through the wheat, every single person who had to walk out to set had to walk exactly in that pathway. Otherwise, this shot would be messed up and they wouldn't be able to do it.
I knew this time would come. We both knew it from the day we found you.
Mother.
I know, son. Do you know where you're headed?
North.
And as soon as she says north, I, as a little kid who knows about the Fortress of Solitude, am going, the Fortress of Solitude, you know?
Each one of you has spoken about the moment when it becomes Superman for you. This is the moment for me. This is the moment. First of all, the cinematography here is absolutely gorgeous and lush. Yeah. And the way he's standing there, obviously he's very reminiscent of Luke and the two sons moment, of course, which I think was 2 years earlier. But there's something about him standing there. Jeff East has this kind of stance that's very heroic or majestic or noble. And you see that he is glimpsing his future. And he's been out there a while because she catches him right at the beginning of the sun coming up, of dawn. And by the time she gets out there, it's been a few hours. It's maybe 8 or 9 because the sun's fully up now. And she walks out there and they have this beautiful exchange. And he's very tender with his mom. And he's clear. And then he says, and I'm sure you're going to get to it, like, I've checked in with this guy. He's going to check in on you from time to time. And so for me, I think there are things we fall in love with about films or whatever. And it's not a shame to say that these are things that echo in your own life. And for me, leaving Virginia, leaving my mom behind to go pursue what I wanted to do in Los Angeles, there's a lot in this moment that feels very similar to me. Obviously, I wasn't going to have to be a hero or anything, but like more a matter of just like, you're meant for something more and you've got to let go of the stuff that was there at the foundation of your existence in order to go and see if you can do that thing. And so I love that energy here in this moment. And the tenderness they have with each other. And, when she says like, always remember us. It's so beautiful.
It's beautiful. And it's kind of, as the camera cranes up into this beautiful horizon shot, like it really goes back to classic filmmaking. Yeah. And I think one of the interesting things that people don't, is like, watching this movie now, we know it's 1978, but people, you think about like what movies have been watched from 1969 until Star Wars comes along or until Jaws comes along. And it's Godfather and Last Picture Show and Cabaret and The Conversation and all these kind of gritty films that didn't have this classic romantic Hollywood feel that we're having here. It had to feel like such a relief to go back to this. And I don't mean a relief in this. I love those 70 films. It's my favorite era of filmmaking. But it's also like, we need different stuff. We don't need just the dark, cynical stuff. We need the romantic stuff too, Yeah. We dissolve to the snow, this high angle and this lone figure walking up into the Arctic. And we see, and by the way, this is shot at Pinewood at it's basically the 007 stage. It's one of the largest stages in the world where they're shooting this. So any giant, Dr. No, whatever image you have in your head on the set, they were probably built on the set. Clark steps out into the ice floe. And we hear, again, I mentioned one of my favorite themes, which is that Krypton theme, which of course is the connection is between Krypton and the Fortress of Solitude. Kneels down, opens up his backpack. Everything is very dramatic. He pulls out that crystal, looks at it, and then he throws it over the lake. It lands in the snow. This next sequence, as the crystal drops down into the snow and then as like a seed, the Fortress of Solitude grows around it. This took months to shoot. Oh, wow. It is so complicated because it's all these little pieces of models and full-size things and things rising. Plus it's all with matte paintings. And I mean, lots of composite shots. This is all really, really difficult. And it's funny because now this is the look of the Fortress of Solitude in Krypton. But when I was a kid, this was totally a radical design. This, all these crystal pillars coming out of the snow. Clark finally walks into it, steps up these ice steps. The design is really, really cool. He pulls out a crystal. And again, we hear that vibration sound. And he puts the crystal in one of these holes for it. And there, a crystal version of Jor-El's face appears. And then there is Brando, who, by the way, was shot against Black Velvet, in case you were wondering how they did this. Okay.
Black Velvet. Sorry.
By now you will have reached your 18th year, as it is measured on Earth. By that reckoning, I will have been dead for many thousands of your years.
Which was very haunting to me as a kid. And then as a grown up, all the stuff about like how far away was he and why is it thousands of years and all that stuff you shouldn't think about.
Well, and also this isn't really a ding on the movie because it all just sort of works, but it's like so wait, did Clark hear the thing because he was 18, or did he hear the thing because Jonathan died, or did Jonathan just die at the exact moment that this thing started ringing so that Jor-El knew that he was 18? So like none of it, even Clark going to the Arctic and going, I feel like I'm going to throw this green crystal that I found in the barn.
Yeah,
like,
I know.
None of it makes sense, which I don't say in a way to go, let me nitpick this movie apart because they really should have figured it out. What it actually is a lesson in not everything ever always has to make sense if you feel it. And this movie is big on aura. Like it's big on feels. Like it's all working. So you don't really go, yeah, okay, I don't really get this. It doesn't make sense. How does Marlon Brando know he's 18 years old? I don't really know. Like you're just like, okay, cool. Like got it. Like it feels right. I'm going to run with it.
There are questions to be asked, and it is time for you to do so. Here in this fortress of solitude, we shall try to find the answers together.
Which is always funny because it's just like, you just got to get that phrase in there.
Well, also wait, particularly because Laura says, I'm afraid he's going to be isolated. And he's like, he won't be isolated. He's got me. Welcome to your fortress of solitude, bitch. They're like, you need to make some decisions, Jor-El.
So, my son, speak.
Who am I?
By the way, my whole contention about the movie Man of Steel, which we won't get into here, but is...
Wait, now we can talk about it? All right, go ahead, yes.
Is just that the question, who am I, is the central question of that movie. And when they're exploring that question, I think the movie works really well.
Yeah.
And then they drift away from it,
well,
I would say.
The core of both Man of Steel and James Gunn's Superman is, who am I? Really? I mean, or like, you know, like it is like, or you could, I mean, if you really want to slice it, Man of Steel is who am I, and Superman is why am I, if you really wanted to get like a little bit more technical with it. But both of them are really about the identity of it all. And again, to get back to the father thing, everything you say, which you said very eloquently, obviously, about being the guy that's there, that's changing the diapers, that's there every day, you are the father. But the thing about this movie is, Clark doesn't become Superman until he goes to Jor-El for the who am I. He gets from Jonathan you're meant for greater things than football, but the specificity of who am I, this movie gives to Jor-El.
Right.
Now what James Gunn does, and then what Zack Snyder does is kind of go, he kind of follows a similar route. Like Jonathan Kent does what Jonathan Kent does in Man of Steel, but it's Jor-El that's like, here's what I want. James Gunn kind of goes the opposite and says, well, you thought Jor-El told you, and then that's taken away from you, and now you have to figure this out on your own. But like, so I do think the Jor-El Jonathan combo and who gives Superman and Clark what piece of what is really interesting when you track through the different films and really the TV shows and how they've all sort of handled it.
So he tells him that he's Kal-El, and then it's like we retrace his journey to Earth in reverse while we're hearing, again, more exposition sort of rambling along. We hear a bit about his powers. This is a whole like college course. They go into the human heart and science and galaxies and all this stuff as we slowly return back to Krypton.
The planet Krypton, my son. Your home, as it was.
Krypton.
It's still weird when he does it.
Well, and
who was going to correct Brando, right?
Nobody.
Certainly Richard Donner wasn't.
He could have called it Kryptonian, and they'd have been like, all right, well, I guess that's what it is now.
It's like a Malkovich and Rounders. No one's going to correct him.
They do the same thing here that they do with the Journey to Earth, which they're giving you a bunch of, okay, he's learning things, he's doing this, but it's also just a passage of time montage. Like this is Simba, Timon, and Pumbaa walking on that log. Like this is just there to go, so he was here for a bit, and it's Christopher Reeve now.
It is now time for you to rejoin your new world and to serve its collective humanity. They can be a great people, Kal-El, they wish to be.
They only lack the light to show the way.
It's so interesting. Like there are certain points that you hit as you're doing Superman, and how you deal with them changes the show. So this one is saying your job is to take care of humanity. And obviously James Gunn makes a different decision, and that General Zod in Man of Steel is also the pressure for a different decision from Kal-El.
For this reason above all, their capacity for good, I have sent them you, my only son.
The face becomes this crystal. We hear the Superman theme. The mask is turning, and as it turns, we look through the eye into a wide shot of the Fortress of Solitude, and now Christopher Reeve standing there in the Superman outfit. It's our first shot of him, and he flies straight towards us, and the turn as he banks around in front of us and flies off, and you really only see him for like a split second.
It's an incredible moment, though, right? Because like,
it is.
This is the moment you've been waiting for, and this is what 45 minutes into the movie, I think, when we finally get
48 minutes. 48
minutes into the movie, we finally get this. I remember clocking it when I was watching it, and I was like, "Wow, I didn't even know that it took this long to get him to this point." But you get to this moment, and it's well worth it. And you hear the thing, and it's just a tease. You hear the theme, you see him fly into the frame, and then I imagine. Yeah, I don't remember, but for me as a kid watching it, it was amazing. I can't imagine as an adult watching it in 1978 and the special effects here in 1978, seeing that he could fly this way, and you're like, oh my God. And so it still works for the majesty of the magic of the moment, and hearing that theme song and him going right by you so that you go, oh God, there's Superman. And then they go right to something else because they're going to wait to really show you Superman for a little bit. So it's some gutsy, smart filmmaking how they pace out when they show you Superman.
I do think that it's worth saying that while all that is true, and I love all these moments, this kind of section is one of those places where if you are a younger Superman fan and you hear people talk about Donner Superman and you go watch this now, having had so many other origin stories and so many other versions of Superman, the Clark throwing the crystal, the fortress coming out, Marlon Brando says, let's spacewalk, son. Now 12 years have passed, you're good to go. And all of a sudden, Christopher Reeve is just in the suit and he flies off. You're kind of like, that's it? That's how we got here? It is a very of its time kind of sequence that if you watched it at the right age, if you watched it at the right time, I do think it's really impactful. But I do think this is one of those sequences that maybe in the big scheme of things doesn't age as well as other parts of the movie.
I think part of it is where we were in 1978. It's like today, in 1978, the idea of a superhero movie was ridiculous.
Right.
Nobody was going to do that. No mainstream audience was going to see it. This is what, Superman was kid stuff. It was on Super Friends and the Superman TV show. So for that stance, the kind of long and slow establishment in this very romantic sense of this character leading to this moment, that totally works because you had to convince me that this was a thing. And today, I agree with you, Michael, is like, well, we have superhero movies everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So the biggest question of the movie was, can we make Superman fly convincingly? And if you watch the old TV show, it's basically George Reeves lying on a platform with sky projected behind him and a fan in his face. And so they kind of went, we have to do better than that. And this was months and months of work and tons of experiments to make this thing happen. They tried building little Superman models and holding them on strings. They tried projections. They tried little robots. They tried building a Superman where the cape was like a glider so that it could fly more. They did all sorts of stuff. And what they ended up with was a bunch of different techniques. But the big thing that I really didn't understand was how incredibly difficult this was on Christopher Reeve. Is that A, he's just being hung from wires all the time for months and months and months trying to figure out how to do this. But B, it's really his performance and his body movement, the way he banks his bodies, the way he moves his arms that is really selling this. And the shot that sold it is in fact this shot. It was, they were in here with the suit trying to get it work over and over again. And finally they got one take where he did that bank and he turned and he had just that hint of a smile as he went by the screen, and they went, I think this movie is going to work. Like this shot right here was the one that did it. And as we said, it's 48 minutes in. It's our very first glimpse of Superman. And I think as we've now finally seen him, it is time, unfortunately, to end part one of our exploration of Superman. Of course, we'd love to hear your thoughts. You can visit us on our Facebook page. Just do a search for the Cine-Files. It's Cine_Files on Twitter, the Cine-Files podcast on Instagram. You can buy or stream Superman along with every other film we've ever reviewed at cinephiles.net. You can subscribe to the show at all the usual places. If you happen to be on Spotify and want to leave a comment, those are awesome. Reviews are great too. They're great on Apple Podcasts. If you want to leave them, you can leave comments on YouTube. And if you want to support the show, as we mentioned, it's patreon.com/thecine-files, where for absolutely free right now, you can listen to the short that John and I just recorded on the 2025 Superman. It was a great conversation. And of course, if you want to reach me, it's SR Morris on Twitter, SR Morris1 on Instagram. John, how would folks reach you?
You can always find me at The Rocha Says, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Blue Threads, or is it Blue? Oh, Blue Sky and Threads. There you go. And my YouTube channel, youtube.com/John Rocha Says. The Outlaw Nation changing to the John Rocha channel very soon. So come aboard and see all the stuff that's happening there as we make the changes. And a fun time, gentlemen. Love revisiting classic movies and love it when we have a guest like Michael join us for these kinds of conversations as well.
Michael, would you like any of the Cine-Files fans to maybe reach out to you and follow you on social media?
You can absolutely follow me on Twitter or Instagram at MKToon. And you can always find me on the Outlaw Nation channel, soon to be the John Rocha channel, with Mr. Rocha on our weekly or multi-weekly show, The Geek Buddies.
And I think that is it for this week. We'll be back to continue our conversation on Superman next week, right here on the Cine-Files.